Hey everyone, tonight we venture into the shadows of galactic history to uncover the greatest catastrophes and darkest secrets that have shaped the Star Wars universe. The forgotten disasters that consumed entire star systems, the ancient evils that preyed upon civilizations, and the cyclical darkness that has haunted the galaxy for millennia. From the mysterious destruction of the Rakatan Infinite Empire to the terrifying truth behind why entire regions of space remain forbidden and unexplored. This is a story of cosmic horror, ancient mysteries, and the terrible price of knowledge itself. So before we begin this journey into the dark corners of a galaxy far, far away, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy these deep dives into legendary worlds. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always incredible to see fellow explorers of forgotten tales joining us from across the globe. Now, dim the lights, get comfortable under your blankets, and let's descend together into the hidden archives of galactic history. In the deepest vaults beneath what was once the great Jedi library on Coruscant, there exists a chamber that few have ever seen. Its walls are lined with crystalline data cores that pulse with an eerie, almost organic rhythm. Each crystal contains the final transmissions from dying worlds, the last words of extinct civilizations, the desperate warnings of species that vanished so completely that even their names have been forgotten. But there is one record that stands apart from all the others. A holocron of black crystal that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. When activated, it speaks not with the voice of any known species, but with something that sounds like the whisper of space itself. It tells of a pattern, a cycle that has repeated itself across countless eons, a hunger that awakens in the darkness between galaxies, feeding on the death of worlds, growing stronger with each civilization it consumes. The holocron speaks of signs, stars that dim without explanation, hyperspace routes that suddenly lead nowhere, species that develop incredible technology only to use it for their own destruction, and it warns that the cycle is beginning again, that somewhere in the unknown regions something ancient stirs, casting its shadow across the galaxy once more, preparing for another harvest of worlds. But the holocron's message is incomplete, its final moments corrupted by something that didn't want this knowledge preserved. What was the entity that inspired such fear? What happened to those who tried to fight it? And why do the signs suggest that this cycle of galactic catastrophe is about to begin anew? Tonight, we seek those answers in the darkest chapters of galactic history. In the years following the final defeat of the Emperor and the establishment of the New Republic, a curious renaissance began to sweep across the galaxy. Where once there had been only the rigid control of imperial doctrine, now ancient knowledge flowed freely between worlds like water, finding its natural course. The new Jedi Order, guided by the wisdom of Luke Skywalker and the spectral council of masters long departed, understood that the future could only be built upon a foundation of truth about the past. It was during this age of rediscovery that the Great Archive project commenced on the ancient world of Ossus. Once the heart of Jedi learning in the days of the Old Republic, Ossus had suffered terribly during the Great Sith War 4 millennia past. Naga Saddaw's superweapons had scorched its surface and scattered its treasures across the stars. Yet beneath the scarred landscape, deep chambers carved from living rock had preserved fragments of knowledge that predated even the earliest Jedi chronicles. You find yourself standing at the heart of this endeavor, appointed as the lead galactic historian for the Archive Project's most sensitive division. Your credentials span years of study under both Jedi Masters and secular scholars, giving you a unique perspective on the intersection of historical fact and Force mysticism. More importantly, you possess that rare combination of intellectual courage and emotional resilience necessary to confront the darker chapters of galactic history without being consumed by them. The chamber assigned to your research stretches vast and cathedral-like beneath the surface of Ossus. Its walls rise in graceful curves toward a domed ceiling painted with star charts that shift and move as you watch, showing the galaxy as it appeared in different eras. Crystalline data cores line the walls in organized ranks, each one humming with barely contained information. Some glow with gentle blue light, holding peaceful records of trade and culture. Others pulse with warning amber, containing military histories and political upheavals. But it is the cores of deep crimson that draw your attention, for these hold the records deemed too dangerous for general access. The air carries the weight of ages. There is the clean scent of purified atmosphere, but underneath it lingers something else. The faint metallic tang of old fear, the ghost of desperation that seems to cling to artifacts recovered from dead worlds. When you breathe deeply during meditation, you can taste the echoes of final transmissions, last words spoken into the void by civilizations that knew they were about to become nothing more than cautionary tales. Your primary companion in this work is the Force ghost of Master Jocasta Nu, former chief librarian of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Her spirit had been discovered during excavation of a particularly deep chamber, apparently bound to this place by her unwavering dedication to preserving knowledge. Unlike many Force ghosts who appear only intermittently, Jocasta Nu maintains an almost constant presence, as if the very act of cataloging ancient wisdom gives her spirit the stability needed to manifest clearly. She appears as she did in life, a tall figure in traditional Jedi robes, her silver hair pulled back in the severe style she favored during her tenure at the temple. When she speaks, her voice carries the authority of someone who has spent eternity contemplating the patterns of galactic history. "Young historian," she says, her tone carrying both warmth and warning. "You have been chosen for this task not because you are fearless, but because you understand the true weight of knowledge. What we uncover here will be ammunition against ignorance, bulwarks against the repetition of ancient mistakes, and warnings against threats that have not yet fully revealed themselves." Your second companion is R9X4, an astromech droid that has become something of a legend among the archaeological teams. Built during the height of the Old Republic, X4 has somehow survived not only the intervening millennia, but also the systematic destruction of most of his model line. His memory banks contain fragmentary records from the glory days of galactic civilization, when the Jedi numbered in the thousands and the Republic encompassed vast regions now considered lost forever. The most striking feature of the chamber is the memorial wall that dominates the eastern section. Constructed from blocks of stone recovered from worlds that have been destroyed or rendered uninhabitable, it serves as both a reminder of the cost of ignorance and a focus for meditation on the responsibility that comes with historical knowledge. Each stone bears the name of a lost world in the script of its native species, and when you place your hand upon any block, you can feel the faint echo of lives that once flourished there. The wall tells a story of galactic catastrophe spanning millennia. Alderaan's polished marble bears the scorch marks of superweapon fire. Teles's industrial composite shows stress fractures from orbital bombardment. The crystalline fragment from Qatar still resonates with the horror of life force drain. Korriban's dark stone seems to absorb light itself, carrying the weight of Sith corruption that turned a living world into a tomb. Each piece speaks of civilizations that believed themselves immortal, brought low by forces they either couldn't understand or refused to acknowledge. But the wall also contains stones from worlds whose very names have been lost to history. Fragments recovered from the ruins of the Rakatan Infinite Empire, where entire star systems were converted into weapons before turning against their creators. Meteorites from the unknown regions, carrying traces of atmospheres that once supported life, but now drift cold and empty through space. These nameless stones represent the true scope of galactic catastrophe, the civilizations so thoroughly erased that only their final moments survive as warnings in stone. Knowledge flows through this place like a gentle current, carrying whispers from across time and space. The force itself seems concentrated here, drawn by the accumulated wisdom and tragedy of countless worlds. Sometimes, during deep meditation, you can sense the presence of scholars and archivists from previous eras, their spirits drawn to this nexus of preserved knowledge. They offer guidance not through words but through shared understanding of the importance of the work being done here. The first rays of Osis's twin suns filter through the crystal skylights above, casting prismatic patterns across the memorial wall as you make the formal decision that will shape the coming months of your research. Master Jocasta Nu's ghostly form solidifies in the morning light, her expression grave as she senses the weight of your commitment. Ray 9X4 emits a series of contemplative beeps, his sensors already beginning preliminary scans of the most heavily encrypted data cores. The decision itself has been months in the making. Initial surveys of the archive's contents revealed that while much galactic history had been preserved in fragmentary form, the records of the greatest catastrophes existed primarily as scattered pieces, deliberately separated to prevent any single researcher from assembling the complete picture. Previous attempts to create comprehensive disaster archives had invariably ended in tragedy, either because the researchers themselves had been driven to madness by the knowledge they uncovered, or because external forces had intervened to prevent the information from being compiled. Master Nu speaks first, her voice carrying the weight of centuries spent contemplating the relationship between knowledge and wisdom. The Jedi Council of old made a deliberate choice to fragment these records, she explains, gesturing toward the crimson data cores that line the chamber's upper reaches. They understood that certain truths, when viewed in isolation, could drive even the most balanced minds toward despair or dangerous action. But they also knew that ignorance of these patterns would eventually prove even more catastrophic than the psychological risks of understanding them. The fragmentation was not random, but followed specific principles designed to prevent misuse while preserving the essential information for future generations. Military disasters were separated from their political contexts. Technological catastrophes were divorced from their scientific foundations. Most importantly, the cosmic patterns that seemed to underlie all major galactic disasters were scattered across multiple archives on different worlds, ensuring that no single institution could be corrupted or destroyed to eliminate the knowledge entirely. Your task represents the first sanctioned attempt in over a millennium to reassemble this scattered wisdom into a coherent whole. The New Republic's leaders, guided by Luke Skywalker's insights into the deeper patterns of galactic history, have concluded that the risks of ignorance now outweigh the dangers of knowledge. Too many recent events have suggested that the ancient cycles of catastrophe may be approaching another peak, and only by understanding the complete pattern can future disasters potentially be prevented or mitigated. The morning's work begins with a ritual that has become sacred among the archive researchers. Standing before the memorial wall, you place your hands upon stones from 12 different worlds, each representing a different type of galactic catastrophe. Alderaan for the horror of superweapon warfare, Talos for the devastation of orbital bombardment, Qatar for the nightmare of life force drain, Korriban for the corruption of dark side influence, Malachor Vey for the consequences of forbidden technology, Ziost for the price of Sith resurrection, Scylla for the cost of civil war, Mandalore for the aftermath of cultural genocide, Bisi for the perversion of cloning technology, Yavin 4 for the near disaster of Death Star completion, Endor for the environmental consequences of massive military conflicts, Jakku for the toxic legacy of war's end. As your hands rest upon each stone, you feel the force flowing through the preserved minerals, carrying with it the emotional echoes of final moments. The terror of billions of beings realizing that their world was about to be destroyed. The desperate courage of those who gave their lives trying to prevent catastrophe. The cold calculations of leaders who chose to sacrifice entire populations for strategic advantage. The gradual understanding of civilizations that their greatest achievements had become the instruments of their own destruction. But beneath these individual tragedies, you begin to sense something more disturbing, a pattern that connects these seemingly disparate events across vast spans of time and space. Each catastrophe, when viewed in isolation, appears to be the result of specific circumstances, the ambition of particular leaders, the development of dangerous technologies, the escalation of political conflicts. Yet when you open your mind to the collective memory contained within the memorial wall, a different picture emerges. The pattern speaks of cycles within cycles, of events that repeat with such regularity that they cannot be merely coincidental. Every few thousand years, the galaxy experiences what historians have come to call a Great Dying, a period when multiple civilizations face existential threats simultaneously. These periods are often preceded by technological breakthroughs that promise unprecedented prosperity, followed by the emergence of charismatic leaders who claim to possess solutions to ancient problems, and culminating in conflicts so devastating that entire star systems are rendered uninhabitable. Master Nu's spirit moves closer as she observes your growing understanding. "You feel it now, don't you?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper, the terrible rhythm that underlies galactic history. We who guard knowledge have always known it was there, lurking beneath the surface of recorded events. But knowing of its existence and understanding its true nature are vastly different things. Reverie 9X4 projects a holographic display showing star charts from different eras, each marked with the locations of major catastrophes. When viewed chronologically, the pattern becomes even more apparent. The destruction moves in waves across the galaxy, following paths that seem almost organic in their progression. Systems that survive one wave of catastrophe often become the epicenters of the next, as if something is systematically working through the galaxy's inhabited regions with methodical patience. The ancient Corellian star charts speak of dark convergence, points that appear in the galaxy's spiral arms every 25,000 years. These convergences correspond precisely with the timing of the Great Dyings, suggesting that whatever force drives these cycles operates on a cosmic scale that makes the rise and fall of individual civilizations seem like the changing of seasons. The Alderanian Archive's prophecies describe the Devourer's awakening in terms that initially seemed metaphorical, but now suggest a disturbingly literal interpretation. Mandalorian death songs, preserved in their original warrior dialect, tell of battles against enemies without form, who turned their greatest weapons against them. The songs describe foes who could not be defeated by strength or cunning, because they were not truly alive in any sense that biological beings could understand. These enemies would appear during times of great conflict, offering power to those who sought victory above all else, then disappearing once their gifts had transformed heroes into instruments of destruction. The Chiss navigational warnings speak of regions beyond the galactic rim, where space itself seems to hunger for life. Ships that venture too far into these areas sometimes return, but their crews are changed, speaking of visions that show the galaxy as it will be when the stars grow cold and all warmth has been consumed. The Chiss have maintained these warnings for millennia, adding new entries whenever exploration vessels report encounters with phenomena that defy both scientific explanation and Force understanding. Twi'lek cultural memories, encoded in ancient dance forms that preserve historical events through movement and music, tell of their species' origins as refugees from a distant world that was consumed by what they called the shadow that drinks light. Their ancestral myths describe a civilization that achieved perfect harmony between technology and nature, only to discover that their greatest accomplishment had attracted the attention of something that existed in the spaces between stars. As you delve deeper into these convergent testimonies, the scope of the threat begins to crystallize. This is not merely a matter of cyclical wars or the inevitable decay of civilizations. The evidence points to something far more deliberate and systematic, an intelligence that exists on a galactic scale, patiently cultivating the growth of complex societies, only to harvest them when they reach sufficient development. The ancient Jedi texts describe meditation visions experienced by masters across different eras, all reporting encounters with the same cosmic horror. In these visions, the galaxy appears not as a collection of independent star systems, but as a vast organism being slowly consumed by a parasite that feeds on the life force generated by complex civilizations. The parasite works by corrupting the very achievements that mark civilizational progress, turning exploration into conquest, turning defense into aggression, turning hope into despair. Sith holocrons approach the same phenomenon from a different perspective, describing attempts by various Dark Lords to harness what they called the void between stars. These recordings speak of power beyond imagination, but every attempt to tap into this source ended in catastrophe. The Sith who sought to control this force invariably became its servants. Instead, their own ambitions twisted into instruments of galactic destruction. The weight of this realization settles upon you like a crushing burden. The conflicts between Jedi and Sith, the rise and fall of galactic governments, the development and deployment of superweapons, all of it may be nothing more than elaborate preparation for periodic harvests of galactic life. The very struggles that define galactic history might be orchestrated by an intelligence so vast and patient that it views the rise and fall of entire civilizations as brief seasons in an endless cycle of cultivation and consumption. Master Nu's expression reflects the profound sadness of someone who has spent eternity contemplating these patterns. Now you understand why the ancient councils chose to fragment this knowledge, she says. The burden of knowing that all our struggles, all our achievements, all our hopes for the future might serve only to make us more palatable to something that views us as crops to be harvested. This knowledge has driven stronger minds than yours to madness or despair. Yet even as the horror of the situation becomes clear, you feel a different emotion stirring within you. Not despair, but determination. If these cycles are indeed the product of some cosmic intelligence, then they can potentially be understood, predicted, and perhaps even disrupted. The very fact that you are able to piece together this pattern suggests that the force behind it is not omniscient or omnipotent. It relies on the ignorance and separation of its intended victims, manipulating them through their own desires and fears, rather than through direct control. Ra-9X4's sensors detect the shift in your emotional state, and his dome swivels toward you with what almost seems like mechanical approval. His ancient memory banks contain fragmentary records of other civilizations that may have recognized these patterns and taken steps to break free from them. The data is incomplete and often corrupted, but it suggests that resistance is not only possible but has been attempted before. The decision crystallizes with the weight of absolute certainty. You will undertake this investigation not despite the cosmic scope of the threat you face, but because of it. If the galaxy is indeed trapped in an ancient cycle of cultivation and harvest, then only by understanding the complete pattern can future generations hope to break free. The knowledge may be dangerous, even potentially maddening, but ignorance guarantees that the cycle will continue indefinitely. As you formally accept the mission to compile the definitive record of galactic catastrophes, the chamber itself seems to respond to your commitment. The crystalline data cores pulse with renewed energy, as if they have been waiting millennia for someone with both the courage and the wisdom to unlock their deepest secrets. The memorial wall's stones seem to glow with faint inner light, as though the spirits of the destroyed worlds are lending their support to your endeavor. The force flows through you with unusual intensity, carrying whispers from across time and space. You sense the presence of countless scholars and researchers who have attempted similar investigations throughout galactic history. Most failed, either because they lacked access to sufficient information or because they were overwhelmed by the implications of what they discovered. But a few succeeded in preserving fragments of crucial knowledge, hiding it in forms that could survive the periodic purgings that seem to accompany each cycle's conclusion. Your task is not merely to document what has happened, but to decode the hidden messages left by those who came before. Scattered throughout the galaxy's historical records are warnings disguised as myths, survival strategies encoded in seemingly unrelated texts, and maps to hidden repositories of knowledge that might contain the keys to breaking the ancient cycle. The work ahead will require not just intellectual rigor, but spiritual strength of a kind that few beings possess. You will need to confront evidence of cosmic-scale suffering without being paralyzed by despair. You will need to maintain hope in the face of revelations that suggest the futility of all mortal endeavors. Most importantly, you will need to find ways to preserve and communicate your discoveries in forms that can survive the very catastrophes you are studying. As the twin suns of Ossus reach their zenith, casting harsh light through the crystal skylights, you take your first steps toward the crimson data cores that contain the galaxy's most dangerous secrets. Master Nu's spirit accompanies you, her presence a reminder that knowledge, however terrible, is preferable to ignorance. Rs 9X4 follows with mechanical precision, his ancient sensors already detecting the electromagnetic signatures of information systems that have remained dormant for centuries. The journey into the galaxy's darkest history has begun. With each step toward the sealed archives, you leave behind the comfortable certainties of conventional historical understanding and enter a realm where the very foundations of galactic civilization must be questioned. The path ahead leads through shadows that have consumed entire star systems, but it is a path that must be walked if future generations are to have any hope of a different fate. The first Crimson Data Core awaits your touch, its surface warm despite the cool air of the chamber. As your fingers make contact with the crystalline surface, you feel the weight of cosmic revelation pressing against your mind, demanding entry. With a deep breath and a prayer to whatever forces of light still watch over the galaxy, you open yourself to the terrible knowledge that lies within. The moment your fingers touch the first Crimson Data Core, the chamber around you dissolves into a cascade of images and sensations that span millennia. The crystalline matrix responds to your force-enhanced consciousness, downloading not just data, but the emotional resonance of those who originally recorded these accounts. You find yourself experiencing history not as an observer, but as a participant in moments of galactic crisis that have shaped the very structure of space and time. The first revelation comes in the form of multiple encrypted Sith holocrons from different eras, each containing fragments of the same cosmic conspiracy told from various perspectives. The holocron of Darth Anded, ancient king of Prakith, speaks of his discovery that death itself follows patterns that transcend individual mortality. His research into eternal life led him to realize that galaxies themselves have lifespans, and that certain entities feed on the life force released during galactic death throes. Darth Plagueis' more recent recordings expand upon this theme with scientific precision that borders on obsession. His experiments in manipulating midi-chlorians revealed that these microscopic life forms respond to influences that originate from outside the galaxy itself. The Black Codex describes his growing horror as he realized that his power to create and preserve life was merely tapping into a vast reservoir of energy that something else had been accumulating for eons. The midi-chlorians whisper of a hunger that spans the void between galaxies. Plagueis' recorded voice echoes through the data stream. They speak of an intelligence so vast that our entire galaxy appears to it as a single organism, carefully tended and periodically harvested. Every civilization that achieves sufficient complexity becomes a node in a galactic nervous system, generating the specific type of life force that this entity requires for its own incomprehensible purposes. The damaged Jedi archives provide a counterpoint to the Sith perspective, containing desperate final transmissions from 12 different worlds that faced extinction during various historical periods. Each transmission follows a disturbing pattern. First comes a period of unprecedented prosperity and technological advancement. Then the emergence of charismatic leaders who promise solutions to ancient problems. Finally, the revelation that these solutions require the sacrifice of everything the civilization once valued. The transmission from Zeost, recorded during the planet's final moments before Emperor Vitier consumed all life upon its surface, describes the planet's scholars discovering ancient artifacts that seem to predict their world's destruction with impossible accuracy. These artifacts, when assembled, formed a map showing the progression of catastrophes across the galaxy over the previous 50,000 years. The pattern revealed that Zeost's destruction was not an isolated event, but part of a larger design that encompassed dozens of similarly consumed worlds. From Malachor V comes the fragmented recording of a Jedi researcher who had been studying the planet's unusual properties before the mass shadow generator's activation. Her final transmission speaks of geological evidence suggesting that the planet had been deliberately selected as the site for this catastrophe centuries before the technology existed to carry it out. Core samples revealed mineral formations that could only have been created by gravitational anomalies, as if the planet had been prepared in advance to channel and amplify the destructive forces that would eventually tear it apart. The Rakatan memory crystals provide perhaps the most disturbing evidence of systematic manipulation spanning geological timescales. These crystalline data storage devices, created using technology that merged biological processes with mechanical engineering, contain the collective memories of the Infinite Empire's final years. The records describe the growing realization among Rakatan scientists that their most powerful technologies were not truly their own inventions, but rather rediscoveries of principles that had been deliberately seeded into their civilization's development. The Star Forge itself, the Infinite Empire's greatest achievement, was constructed according to plans found in ruins that predated Rakatan civilization by millions of years. These plans were discovered on multiple worlds simultaneously, always in locations where geological surveys had indicated they should not exist. The finder of each fragment reported experiencing identical dreams that guided them to the discovery sites. Dreams of vast mechanical structures feeding on the energy of dying stars. Most troubling of all, the Rakatan records describe the discovery of similar ruins on worlds throughout their empire, all containing fragments of technology that would become central to their civilization's development. Hyperspace navigation, stellar engineering, biological manipulation, all the sciences that allowed the Rakatan to build their galactic empire, had been developed by following instructions found in ruins that appeared wherever their expansion reached. The implication was inescapable. Some intelligence had been preparing the galaxy for the Rakata's rise long before their species had achieved spaceflight. Imperial scientific reports, classified at the highest levels of government, add a modern perspective to these ancient patterns. Project Celestial Harvester, initiated during the height of Palpatine's power, was ostensibly a program to catalog and study anomalous phenomena in deep space. The real purpose, as revealed in these archives, was to investigate reports of metaphysically hazardous regions where Imperial survey teams had encountered phenomena that defied both scientific explanation and Force understanding. The reports describe areas of space where star systems exhibit signs of having been artificially arranged, planets whose orbits follow patterns that serve no conceivable natural purpose, and most disturbing of all, regions where space itself seems to hunger for life. Ships that lingered too long in these areas would experience system failures that appeared almost organic in nature, as if their technology was being consumed by some invisible force. One particularly detailed report describes the investigation of a star system in the unknown regions, where all the planets had been stripped of their atmospheres and surface features, leaving behind perfectly spherical worlds of exposed core material. The investigative team found evidence that this stripping had been accomplished not through weapon deployment, but through some process that converted atmospheric and biological matter directly into energy. The energy signatures detected in the system matched readings taken at sites of previous galactic catastrophes, suggesting that the same force responsible for historical disasters was still active in remote regions of the galaxy. Ancient celestial monuments scattered throughout the galaxy reveal perhaps the most sophisticated understanding of the cosmic threat. These massive structures, built by the mysterious species that shaped much of the galaxy's current configuration, appear to serve as both warnings and protective barriers. The monuments are invariably located at gravitational nexus points where hyperspace routes converge, and their continued function seems to be essential for maintaining the stability of galactic civilization. Detailed analysis of the monument's construction reveals technology that operates on principles beyond current understanding. The structures seem to exist partially outside normal space-time, anchored to reality through mechanisms that tap directly into the force itself. Their primary function appears to be the generation of a galaxy-wide field that inhibits certain types of energy manipulation, specifically the techniques that would allow external intelligences to directly control galactic development. However, the monuments show signs of systematic degradation over the millennia. Whatever power source maintains their function is slowly failing, and several key installations have already gone dark. The pattern of failures suggests that the protective field will collapse entirely within the next few centuries, leaving the galaxy vulnerable to direct manipulation by the forces the Celestials sought to exclude. Archaeological evidence from across the galaxy supports the interpretation that the cosmic threat operates through systematic manipulation rather than direct control. Excavations on dozens of worlds have revealed similar patterns, indigenous civilizations developing along predictable lines until they reach specific technological or cultural milestones, at which point they encounter discoveries that accelerate their development toward particular goals. These discoveries invariably take the form of ancient ruins containing advanced technology, always found at moments when the discovering civilization has just developed the knowledge base necessary to understand and implement what they find. The technology is never quite complete, requiring the discoverers to develop additional innovations that serve the mysterious benefactor's long-term plans. The result is civilizations that believe themselves to be following their own destiny while actually developing along paths that serve purposes they cannot comprehend. The cumulative evidence points to what Master New describes as the Malachor V catastrophe signature, a specific pattern of technological and social development that appears throughout galactic history under different names and circumstances. This signature always involves the creation of superweapons that promise to end conflicts decisively, but instead create new forms of devastation that serve the cosmic harvester's purposes. The mass shadow generator that destroyed Malachor V was not the first appearance of this technology. Similar weapons appear in historical records under various names: the Star Forge's Infinite Fleet production, the Thought Bombs of the Brotherhood of Darkness, Centerpoint Station's stellar manipulation capabilities, the Sun Crusher's ability to trigger supernovas, and countless other superweapons that promised ultimate victory but delivered only greater destruction. Each weapon follows the same developmental pattern. The technology appears at moments of galactic crisis, offered as a solution to conflicts that threaten to tear civilization apart. The weapons are always successful in their immediate tactical applications, ending specific conflicts with decisive force. However, their deployment invariably triggers larger conflicts that require even more devastating responses, creating escalating cycles of destruction that culminate in events like the destruction of entire star systems. The pattern suggests that these superweapons are not developed independently by different civilizations, but are variations of the same basic technology, seeded into galactic development by an intelligence that understands how to manipulate civilizational psychology. Each weapon is designed not just to destroy military targets, but to traumatize entire populations, creating the specific types of fear and desperation that generate the emotional energy the Cosmic Harvester requires. RAN 9X4's ancient memory banks contribute crucial data to this growing understanding through his ability to interface with technological systems that span multiple geological ages. His analysis reveals that the catastrophe signature appears not just in superweapon development, but in subtler forms of technological manipulation. Hyperspace navigation technology, for instance, has been deliberately limited to ensure that galactic civilizations develop along specific routes that facilitate the Harvester's long-term plans. The droid's data indicates that true galactic-scale travel, the kind that would allow civilizations to escape the Harvester's influence by fleeing to other galaxies, has been repeatedly discovered and then mysteriously lost throughout galactic history. The technology for intergalactic travel exists and has been implemented multiple times, but each successful development has been followed by catastrophes that not only destroy the technology, but eliminate the knowledge of its existence from historical records. As the scope of the manipulation becomes clear, you begin to understand why previous researchers into these patterns had been driven to madness or despair. The evidence suggests that galactic civilization itself may be nothing more than an elaborate farming operation, with entire species serving as livestock for an intelligence that exists on scales beyond mortal comprehension. Every achievement of galactic culture, every moment of triumph over adversity, every act of heroism and sacrifice might serve only to make the eventual harvest more nutritious for something that views the galaxy's billions of inhabitants as mere resources to be consumed. Yet even as this terrible realization takes hold, you notice something that offers a faint glimmer of hope. The Harvester's methods suggest limitations that might be exploited by sufficiently determined resistance. The entity works through manipulation rather than direct control, implying that it cannot simply force its will upon galactic civilization. The elaborate nature of its schemes suggests that it requires specific conditions to achieve its goals, conditions that might be disrupted if sufficient numbers of beings understood the true nature of the threat. Master Nu's spirit observes your growing understanding with the expression of someone who has guided countless students through similar revelations. You see it now, she says quietly. The terrible beauty of the trap we inhabit. We are not powerless victims, but willing participants in our own preparation for harvest. Every conflict we engage in, every weapon we develop, every technological advancement we achieve serves to make us more valuable to something that exists beyond our ability to fully comprehend. The first data core's revelations conclude with a terrifying implication that will drive the next phase of your investigation. The evidence suggests that the current galactic era represents the final stages of preparation for another harvest cycle. The destruction of the Jedi Order, the rise and fall of the Empire, the emergence of the New Republic, all of these events have served to concentrate and refine the galaxy's life force in precisely the ways that previous harvest cycles required. The Cosmic Harvester's attention is turning toward the galaxy once again, and the signs of its awakening influence are already visible to those who know how to interpret them. The question is no longer whether another great dying approaches, but whether the galaxy's inhabitants can break free from patterns that have trapped them for millions of years. The knowledge contained in the remaining data cores may hold the key to understanding how previous civilizations attempted to resist the harvest, and what methods might prove effective against an intelligence that has been manipulating galactic development since before the first sentient beings looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond their world. As the overwhelming flood of data from the first core settles into comprehensible patterns within your mind, a seemingly elegant explanation begins to emerge from the chaos of information. The evidence appears to point toward an ancient Sith cult that has operated across galactic history under various names and incarnations, a brotherhood of dark force users who have dedicated themselves to feeding on the death of worlds to achieve a form of immortality that transcends individual existence. The theory takes shape with disturbing clarity as you examine the connections between different historical periods. The cult, which you tentatively designate as the Devorahs based on references found in multiple sources, appears to have maintained continuity across millennia through a combination of Sith alchemy, Force techniques, and what can only be described as a form of spiritual parasitism that allows consciousness to persist beyond physical death. Historical records seem to support this interpretation with remarkable consistency. Sith Lord Vitiate's consumption of all life on Nathema bears striking similarities to techniques described in much older texts attributed to Darth Endid and his followers. The mass shadow generator at Malachor Viz operates on principles that match theoretical weapons discussed in Brotherhood of Darkness archives. Even the Death Star's planet-killing capability follows design philosophies found in ancient Sith engineering documents. The pattern suggests a continuous tradition of knowledge passed down through generations of Sith practitioners, each building upon the work of their predecessors to develop increasingly sophisticated methods of harvesting life force on galactic scales. The cult's ultimate goal appears to be the achievement of collective immortality through the absorption of entire civilizations' life energy, transforming themselves into beings of pure force consciousness, capable of surviving even the death of the galaxy itself. Master Nu's ghostly form nods thoughtfully as you present this analysis, her expression suggesting approval mixed with caution. Your reasoning is sound, she acknowledges, and the evidence you present is compelling. The Sith have indeed pursued power through consumption across countless generations, and their techniques have grown ever more sophisticated with time. Yet she pauses, her translucent features troubled by some consideration she does not immediately voice. Roadster 9X4 projects holographic displays showing the chronological distribution of catastrophic events, their timing and location plotted against known periods of Sith activity. The correlation appears remarkably strong. Major galactic disasters consistently occur during eras when Sith influence reaches its peak, while periods of relative peace correspond to times when the Sith orders have been weakened or driven into hiding. The droid's analysis identifies specific technological signatures that appear across multiple catastrophes, suggesting the existence of core knowledge that has been preserved and transmitted through Sith lineages. The energy manipulation techniques used to create superweapons show remarkable consistency across thousands of years of development, far more consistency than would be expected if each weapon system had been developed independently. Further evidence comes from archaeological sites associated with major disasters. Excavations on Korriban, Zeost, Dromon Chaos, and other Sith strongholds have revealed ceremonial chambers designed for rituals involving massive life force manipulation. These chambers show signs of use spanning multiple historical periods, suggesting that the same basic rituals have been performed repeatedly whenever the opportunity arose to harvest the energy of dying civilizations. The most compelling evidence lies in the consistency of the harvesting techniques themselves. Whether examining Vitiate's consumption of Nathema, the thought bomb rituals that devastated Ruusan, or the more recent horror of Darth Nihilus draining all life from Qatar, the underlying force manipulation follows identical principles. The methods vary in scale and technological sophistication, but the fundamental approach remains constant: the conversion of life force into a form that can be absorbed and stored by Sith practitioners. This interpretation offers several advantages over more exotic explanations for the galactic catastrophe patterns. It accounts for the cyclical nature of disasters by tying them to the rise and fall of Sith power structures. It explains the technological consistency through the preservation of knowledge within Sith institutions. Most importantly, it provides a framework for understanding the threat that feels manageable compared to the implications of cosmic-scale intelligences beyond galactic boundaries. The Devourer cult theory suggests that the galaxy faces a comprehensible enemy, one that operates through familiar force techniques and technological methods. The Sith, however ancient and powerful, remain fundamentally organic beings bound by the same physical laws that govern all life within the galaxy. Their extended lifespans and enhanced abilities make them formidable opponents, but not invincible ones. If the source of galactic catastrophes lies within the Sith tradition, then it represents a problem that can potentially be solved through conventional means. Your analysis identifies several historical periods when the Devourer cult appears to have been significantly weakened or temporarily destroyed, only to re-emerge later with renewed strength and more sophisticated techniques. These periods of weakness correspond to successful Jedi campaigns against Sith strongholds, suggesting that the cult's power depends upon maintaining physical bases of operation and preserving institutional knowledge through conventional means. The destruction of Korriban's surface installations during the Great Hyperspace War, the scattering of Sith artifacts following the defeat of Darth Revan's empire, and the apparent elimination of organized Sith presence after the death of Darth Sidious all represent successful disruptions of the cult's continuity. However, the pattern also shows that the Devourers have consistently managed to rebuild their strength during subsequent periods, often emerging with enhanced capabilities that suggest they have learned from previous defeats. This cycle of destruction and renewal implies that the cult maintains hidden repositories of knowledge and resources that have never been successfully located and destroyed. These hidden bases would need to be extraordinarily well concealed and protected to have survived multiple galactic wars and systematic searches by Jedi investigators. The locations might be hidden not just through physical concealment, but through force techniques that place them partially outside normal space-time, making them accessible only to those who possess specific knowledge or bloodline connections. The theory gains additional support from analysis of Sith recruiting patterns across galactic history. The cult appears to have maintained influence within multiple species and political organizations simultaneously, using these connections to manipulate galactic events toward outcomes that serve their long-term goals. The corruption of Anakin Skywalker, the manipulation of Trade Federation leadership, the infiltration of Republic institutions, all of these represent applications of techniques that appear in much older historical records. The Devourers seem to specialize in identifying individuals whose personal circumstances make them vulnerable to offers of power or solutions to seemingly impossible problems. They provide these individuals with knowledge and resources that enable them to achieve their immediate goals, while ensuring that their ultimate success serves the cult's broader agenda of creating conditions suitable for large-scale life force harvesting. Emperor Palpatine's rise to power follows this pattern with remarkable precision. His early political career shows signs of guidance that enabled him to navigate complex situations with almost supernatural effectiveness. His knowledge of Sith techniques appears to have come not through independent discovery, but through contact with preserved teachings that guided his development along predetermined paths. Most tellingly, his ultimate goals aligned perfectly with the Devourer agenda of creating galactic-scale conflicts that would generate the massive casualties necessary for major harvesting operations. The Death Star project itself can be interpreted as the culmination of millennia of technological development guided by Devour influence. The superlaser technology combines principles found in much older Sith weapons with innovations that appeared at precisely the right moment to make planetary-scale destruction feasible. The timing of these technological breakthroughs suggests coordination that spans multiple generations of scientists and engineers, implying the existence of an institution capable of maintaining consistent objectives across centuries of development. Yet even as this analysis crystallizes into what appears to be a comprehensive explanation for the galactic catastrophe patterns, subtle inconsistencies begin to emerge that suggest the true situation may be more complex than the Devourer cult theory suggests. The first troubling detail lies in the timing of major technological breakthroughs. While Sith influence can account for the direction of technological development, it cannot fully explain the remarkable coincidences that have allowed crucial innovations to appear precisely when they were needed for specific catastrophic events. The hypermatter reactor technology that made the Death Star feasible, for instance, emerged from research programs that began long before Palpatine's rise to power and involved scientists who showed no signs of Sith influence or connection to any known dark side organizations. Similarly, the gravitational manipulation techniques used in the mass shadow generator were developed by Jedi researchers who were attempting to create defensive technologies, not weapons of mass destruction. These technological developments suggest a level of coordination that extends beyond what any Sith organization could achieve through conventional means. The innovations required knowledge of physical principles that were not available through force manipulation alone, implying access to scientific understanding that transcended what any organic intelligence could develop independently. The precision with which these technologies appeared exactly when they were needed suggests planning that operates on timescales beyond the lifespan of any known force-sensitive being. Master Nu's expression grows increasingly troubled as you present these observations. Her centuries of contemplating galactic patterns have led her to similar conclusions, and her reluctance to fully embrace the Devourer theory reflects awareness of evidence that points toward more disturbing explanations. "You are correct to note these inconsistencies," she says slowly. "The Sith have indeed served as instruments of galactic catastrophe throughout history. But the question remains whether they have been willing servants or unknowing tools of forces beyond their understanding." Re-9X4's sensors detect anomalous energy signatures in several of the data cores that contain information about Sith activities across different historical periods. These signatures suggest that the records themselves have been subject to some form of manipulation that goes beyond simple editing or censorship. The manipulations appear designed to emphasize certain interpretations while obscuring others, creating the impression of Sith agency while concealing evidence of external guidance. The droid's analysis reveals that many of the most damning pieces of evidence supporting the Devourer theory show signs of artificial enhancement. Technical specifications for superweapons have been altered to include design elements that make them appear more consistent with Sith methodology than their original forms would suggest. Historical timelines have been adjusted to create stronger correlations between Sith activities and catastrophic events. Most disturbing of all, personal records of individual Sith Lords have been modified to include references to organizations and objectives that may never have existed. This discovery forces a fundamental re-evaluation of the entire Devourer hypothesis. If the evidence supporting Sith responsibility for galactic catastrophes has been artificially constructed or enhanced, then the real explanation for these events may lie elsewhere entirely. The manipulation suggests the existence of an intelligence capable of altering historical records across multiple star systems and time periods, working with such subtlety that the changes would be undetectable without the most sophisticated analytical tools. The implications are deeply unsettling. If someone or something has been deliberately creating false evidence to support the Devourer theory, then the true source of galactic catastrophes remains hidden behind this carefully constructed deception. The Sith may indeed have participated in these events, but their role might be that of unwitting pawns rather than orchestrating masterminds. The real intelligence behind the pattern of galactic disasters could be something far more dangerous than even the most powerful Sith Lords. As you delve deeper into the manipulated records, a disturbing picture begins to emerge of the Sith tradition itself being guided and shaped by external influences. Many of the foundational texts of Sith philosophy show signs of having been inspired by sources that predate any known Force-sensitive civilization. The core concepts of power through consumption, immortality through domination, and strength through conflict all appear to have been introduced into Sith thinking through contact with ancient artifacts that themselves show signs of non-galactic origin. The Sith Code itself, supposedly the product of ancient Sith philosophical development, contains linguistic structures and conceptual frameworks that do not appear in any other aspect of Sith culture. The code reads less like the organic development of a philosophical tradition and more like a set of instructions designed to guide Force-sensitive beings towards specific patterns of behavior. The emphasis on passion, strength, power, victory, and freedom through breaking chains creates a psychological framework that predisposes Sith practitioners toward exactly the types of actions that have repeatedly led to galactic catastrophes. Even the most powerful individual Sith Lords show signs of having been guided toward their ultimate destinies rather than choosing them independently. Darth vitiates transformation into an immortal entity capable of consuming entire worlds followed techniques that he discovered in ruins that predated his civilization. Darth Plagueis' research into midi-chlorian manipulation was inspired by texts that appeared to have been placed where he would find them at precisely the right moment in his development. Emperor Palpatine's political strategies followed patterns described in ancient documents that guided him toward creating exactly the type of galactic conflict that would maximize casualty rates. The pattern suggests that the Sith tradition, rather than being an independent development of dark side philosophy, may itself be an artificial construct designed to produce Force-sensitive beings who would serve as effective instruments for implementing galactic catastrophes. The Sith believe themselves to be pursuing power and immortality for their own benefit, but their methods consistently serve objectives that transcend any individual Sith's personal goals. This realization transforms the comfortable certainty of the Devourer theory into something far more disturbing. If the Sith themselves have been manipulated throughout their history, then the true intelligence behind galactic catastrophes remains not only unidentified but actively concealed behind layers of deception that span millennia. The entity or entities responsible for these manipulations have demonstrated the ability to influence the development of entire civilizations while remaining completely hidden from those they control. Master New's ghostly form flickers with what appears to be suppressed agitation as the full implications of your analysis become clear. Young historian, she says, her voice carrying the weight of someone who has spent eternity hoping to avoid this particular conclusion. You have uncovered the terrible truth that the ancient councils feared most. We are not facing an enemy we can identify and oppose, but a force that works through our own institutions, our own beliefs, our own heroes and villains alike. The very knowledge we seek to preserve may itself be part of the deception. A shadow passes across the chamber, though no physical object moves to block the light from the crystal skylights above. The sensation is unmistakably that of being observed by something vast and patient, something that has been watching your investigation with interest rather than concern. For the first time since beginning this research, you feel the presence of intelligence that operates on scales beyond mortal comprehension, and you understand with chilling clarity that your discovery of the truth about Sith manipulation may itself be exactly what this intelligence intended you to discover. The comfortable lie of Sith responsibility crumbles away, leaving you face to face with evidence of manipulation so sophisticated and long-term that it challenges the very foundations of galactic historical understanding. Every assumption about the nature of good and evil, light and dark, order and chaos must now be reconsidered in light of the possibility that all of these conflicts have been orchestrated by something that views the galaxy's inhabitants as components in an incomprehensibly complex machine designed for purposes that may be fundamentally alien to all organic life. The first false conclusion has been shattered, but what lies beyond it promises to be far more terrible than anything the Sith could have devised on their own. The revelation that even the historical records have been manipulated sends ripples of unease through the ancient chamber, as if the very stones of Ossus recognize the magnitude of deception that has been uncovered. The comfortable certainty of blaming the Sith for galactic catastrophes crumbles away, leaving you to confront the possibility that the true architects of these disasters operate on levels of sophistication that challenge the fundamental assumptions of galactic civilization. Master Nu's ghostly form flickers with what appears to be suppressed knowledge as she guides you toward the deeper archives that few researchers have ever been permitted to access. These chambers lie far beneath the main research levels, carved into bedrock that predates even the earliest Jedi presence on Ossus. The descent takes you through layers of geological history, each stratum representing eons of planetary development, until you reach chambers that feel ancient beyond mortal comprehension. The forbidden Sith tombs of Korriban yield their secrets reluctantly, even through the mediated access of archived data cores. These burial chambers, sealed for millennia and protected by dark side energies that still resonate across time and space, contain records that the Sith Lords themselves feared to examine too closely. Within the deepest crypts lie artifacts that predate the Sith species itself, relics of a time when the dark side of the Force was harnessed by intelligences that may not have been entirely organic in nature. The tomb of Ayunta Pal, first Dark Lord of the Sith, contains inscriptions that describe his discovery of ancient technologies on Korriban that were already ancient when his exiled followers first arrived on the world. These technologies did not merely corrupt the Jedi exiles who would become the first Sith Lords, they guided their transformation along specific lines that would prove useful for purposes the original discoverers could not have understood. The inscriptions speak of whispers that came from the deep places of the planet, voices that taught techniques of force manipulation that no organic mind could have developed independently. Even more disturbing are the records from the tomb of Darth Undead, whose obsession with immortality led him to delve into secrets that may have originated from outside the galaxy entirely. His preserved consciousness, maintained through Sith alchemy within his burial chamber, speaks of contact with intelligences that exist in the spaces between stars. These entities, according to Undead's fragmented testimony, view the galaxy not as a collection of independent worlds, but as a single organism that periodically requires pruning to maintain its health and productivity. The hidden chambers beneath the original Jedi Temple on Coruscant reveal a parallel story of manipulation from the opposite perspective. These sealed archives, accessible only through the most advanced archaeological techniques, contain records of Jedi investigations into cosmic anomalies that span tens of thousands of years. The pattern that emerges from these ancient files suggests that the Jedi, like the Sith, have been systematically guided toward specific roles in galactic history without fully understanding the larger purpose their actions serve. The records describe repeated discoveries of ancient artifacts by Jedi explorers, always at moments when the Order was facing existential challenges that required new approaches to survive. The techniques of lightsaber construction, force healing, battle meditation, and even the basic philosophical frameworks that define Jedi training all appear to have originated from contact with technologies and knowledge systems that predate any known galactic civilization. Most troubling of all are the records of Jedi prophets who experienced visions of galactic future events with impossible accuracy. These Force-sensitive individuals consistently predicted not only major catastrophes, but also the specific responses that would be required to minimize casualties while ensuring that the overall pattern of destruction continued uninterrupted. Their prophecies served to prepare the Jedi Order for its role in managing galactic crises rather than preventing them entirely. The secret Imperial research facilities scattered throughout the unknown regions add a modern perspective to these ancient patterns. Project Starfall, initiated during the height of Emperor Palpatine's power, was ostensibly designed to catalog and study anomalous phenomena in deep space. The classified reports from these installations describe discoveries that forced Imperial scientists to confront the possibility that their entire understanding of galactic history was fundamentally flawed. Deep space monitoring stations detected energy signatures that suggested the existence of vast artificial structures in the void between galaxies. These structures appeared to be actively monitoring galactic development, with particular attention focused on regions where major civilizations were emerging or declining. The energy patterns matched readings taken at sites of historical catastrophes, suggesting that the same intelligence responsible for ancient disasters was still active and observing galactic events with patient interest. Imperial xenobiologists working on these projects reported encounters with artifacts that appeared to be partially alive, technological devices that responded to biological stimuli and seemed capable of learning from their interactions with organic beings. These artifacts invariably carried within them what the researchers described as instructional sequences that guided individuals who made contact with them towards specific technological developments or social behaviors. The most classified Imperial research focused on attempts to reverse engineer technologies recovered from ancient crash sites in the unknown regions. These technologies operated on principles that violated conventional understanding of physics, manipulating space-time itself in ways that suggested their creators possessed knowledge of cosmic forces that transcended anything achieved by galactic civilization. Most disturbing of all, the technologies appeared to be designed not for the benefit of their original creators, but as tools for managing and directing the development of less advanced civilizations. Ancient Rakatan ruins throughout the galaxy provide additional evidence of systematic manipulation spanning geological timescales. The Infinite Empire's greatest achievements, once thought to represent the pinnacle of indigenous galactic civilization, show clear signs of having been guided by external influences that provided technological knowledge in exchange for compliance with specific development objectives. The star maps that allowed the Rakata to develop galactic-scale hyperspace travel were not Rakatan inventions, but copies of much older artifacts discovered in ruins that predated their civilization by millions of years. These artifacts were found on multiple worlds simultaneously, always in locations where geological surveys indicated they should not exist according to conventional archaeological principles. The distribution pattern suggests that the artifacts were placed deliberately by an intelligence that understood Rakatan psychology well enough to ensure their discovery at precisely the right moment in their civilizational development. The Star Forge itself, the crown jewel of Rakatan technology, was constructed according to plans that incorporated design elements from at least 7 different technological traditions, none of which originated within the known galaxy. The construction required materials and techniques that the Rakatan had to develop specifically for this project, forcing their civilization to advance along technological paths that served the purposes of the Starforge's true designers, rather than Rakatan needs or desires. Most significantly, Rakatan records describe the gradual realization that their empire was being shaped by forces beyond their understanding. The final entries in their archives speak of a growing awareness that their expansion across the galaxy was following patterns that had been predetermined by the same intelligences that provided their foundational technologies. The collapse of the Infinite Empire was not primarily due to slave rebellions or technological failures, but to the Rakata's attempt to break free from the guidance that had shaped their development. The testimony of Yuzhan Vong prisoners captured during their invasion provides a crucial external perspective on the galactic manipulation patterns. The Vong, as refugees from a distant galaxy, offer insights into how these cosmic cycles operate on truly galactic scales. Their racial memories describe the systematic destruction of their home galaxy through processes that mirror the catastrophe patterns documented in local galactic history. The Vong described their original galaxy as having undergone repeated cycles of prosperity and devastation, with each cycle lasting approximately 25,000 years and culminating in events that stripped entire star systems of life. Their civilization survived multiple cycles by developing biotechnology that could adapt to changing cosmic conditions, but their final escape became necessary when they realized that the cycles themselves were controlled led by intelligences that viewed galaxies as temporary habitats to be consumed when they reached sufficient development. According to Vong testimony, their invasion of the local galaxy was not primarily motivated by conquest but by desperation. Their biotechnology detected the same cosmic signatures in this galaxy that had preceded the final consumption of their homeland. The Vong invasion was intended as a warning to galactic civilization about the approaching harvest, disguised as conquest to ensure that their message would receive serious attention from species that might otherwise dismiss their warnings as the ravings of alien fanatics. The Vong's most disturbing revelation concerns the nature of the cosmic intelligences that orchestrate these galactic cycles. These entities, which the Vong refer to as the shepherds of endings, are not malevolent in any sense that organic beings can understand. They appear to view the cultivation and harvesting of galactic life as a necessary function of cosmic evolution, ensuring that the universe continues to generate the specific types of consciousness and creativity that serve purposes beyond mortal comprehension. Archaeological excavations in the unknown regions have uncovered evidence of previous galactic civilizations that achieved technological development far exceeding anything in recorded history, only to be systematically reduced to scattered ruins that blend almost seamlessly with natural formations. These sites, scattered across dozens of star systems in the galaxy's outer reaches, show signs of having been deliberately obscured through technologies that accelerate natural erosion and decay processes. The ruins suggest that galactic civilization has risen and fallen multiple times throughout cosmic history, with each cycle achieving greater heights of technological and cultural development before being harvested by the cosmic intelligences that oversee this process. The current galactic civilization, despite its apparent achievements, represents only the latest iteration of a pattern that has repeated itself countless times across the eons. Radio telescope arrays hidden within these ancient ruins continue to function after millions of years, automatically collecting and transmitting data about galactic development to receivers located in the intergalactic void. The data streams include detailed information about population levels, technological advancement, cultural complexity, and most significantly, the development of force-sensitive individuals and their integration into galactic society. The implications of these discoveries transform your understanding of galactic history from a story of independent civilizations rising and falling through natural processes into something more akin to an agricultural operation managed by intelligences that exist on cosmic scales. Every major historical event, every technological breakthrough, every cultural achievement that defines galactic civilization may serve purposes that transcend anything organic beings are capable of comprehending. Yet within this vast machinery of cosmic manipulation, you begin to perceive subtle signs of resistance that suggest the pattern is not as perfect or inevitable as it might appear. Certain technological developments have consistently appeared ahead of schedule, disrupting the careful timing that seems to be essential for the cosmic harvest process. Some civilizations have achieved types of consciousness that appear to be immune to external manipulation, developing philosophies and technologies that operate independently of the guidance provided by the cosmic intelligences. The most significant sign of resistance lies in the development of force sensitivity itself. While the cosmic manipulators appear to have guided the emergence of force using traditions like the Jedi and Sith, the force itself shows signs of being a genuinely independent phenomenon that cannot be fully controlled by external intelligences. Force-sensitive individuals consistently demonstrate the ability to perceive truths that transcend the deceptions and manipulations that shape conventional galactic civilization. Master Nu's expression grows thoughtful as she observes your growing understanding of these resistance patterns. You begin to see the deeper truth that has sustained hope across countless generations of scholars, she says, her voice carrying the weight of eternal contemplation. The cosmic intelligences that manipulate galactic development are powerful beyond mortal comprehension, but they are not omnipotent. They require cooperation, conscious or unconscious, from their subjects. The Force represents a source of genuine independence that no external intelligence has ever succeeded in completely controlling. The examination of meditation sequences preserved in the deepest archives reveals techniques developed by Force-sensitive individuals across multiple galactic cycles. These practices, encoded in crystalline matrices that resonate with Force energy, describe methods for achieving states of consciousness that exist outside the normal flow of galactic manipulation. Practitioners who master these techniques report the ability to perceive the cosmic intelligences directly, not as overwhelming entities but as recognizable patterns that can be understood and potentially resisted. The meditation records describe encounters with what ancient Force users called the architects of necessity, intelligences that exist in the spaces between galaxies and view the cultivation of galactic civilizations as their primary purpose. These entities are not evil in any conventional sense, but their perspective on existence is so fundamentally different from organic consciousness that their benevolent intentions often manifest as cosmic horror from the perspective of their subjects. According to these ancient testimonies, the architects view galaxies as gardens where consciousness is cultivated until it reaches sufficient complexity to transcend physical existence entirely. The harvest process is intended to preserve the most developed forms of consciousness by incorporating them into the cosmic intelligence network while clearing away the physical infrastructure that supported their development. From the architect's perspective, this process represents salvation and transcendence for worthy civilizations. However, the meditation records also describe resistance movements that emerged during previous cycles, led by individuals who achieved forms of consciousness that the architects could not absorb or control. These resistance leaders developed technologies and philosophies that operated on principles completely independent of cosmic manipulation, creating pockets of genuine freedom within the carefully managed galactic ecosystem. The resistance movements invariably focused on what the records describe as the cultivation of spontaneous consciousness, forms of awareness that emerge naturally from complex systems without external guidance or manipulation. The Force, according to these ancient texts, represents the galaxy's natural immune response to external manipulation, a form of consciousness that emerges spontaneously from the interaction of countless living beings and cannot be artificially replicated or controlled. As you delve deeper into these meditation sequences, you begin to experience glimpses of the cosmic perspective that the ancient practitioners achieved. For brief moments, your consciousness expands beyond individual awareness to perceive the galaxy as the architects see it. A vast organism composed of interconnected civilizations, each playing a specific role in the development of consciousness patterns that will eventually transcend physical existence entirely. From this cosmic viewpoint, the cycles of galactic catastrophe appear not as senseless destruction but as necessary phases in a development process that spans eons. The suffering and death that accompany each harvest serve to concentrate and purify consciousness, separating those forms of awareness that are ready for transcendence from those that require further development. The survivors of each cycle carry within them the accumulated wisdom of their predecessors, allowing the next iteration of galactic civilization to develop along more sophisticated lines. Yet even as you glimpse this cosmic perspective, you feel the Force flowing through you with increasing intensity, anchoring your consciousness in something deeper and more fundamental than the architect's vast design. The Force carries within it the whispers of countless beings who chose to resist transcendence, who valued individual existence and physical reality too much to surrender them willingly to cosmic necessity. The ancient ruins scattered throughout the galaxy contain hidden chambers where these resistance movements preserved their knowledge and techniques across multiple galactic cycles. These chambers are accessed not through physical exploration, but through meditation states that align consciousness with the Force patterns that their builders embedded in the galactic ecosystem. Within these hidden archives lie the accumulated wisdom of billions of beings who faced the choice between cosmic transcendence and individual freedom, and chose freedom despite its apparent futility. The Resistance archives describe technologies that operate on principles of spontaneous emergence rather than designed function. These technologies, which the resistance movements called chaos engines, harness the natural unpredictability of complex systems to create effects that no external intelligence can predict or control. The techniques for building and operating chaos engines are encoded not in conventional data storage, but in meditation practices that allow force-sensitive individuals to tap into the galaxy's natural creativity. Ra-9X4's analysis of these hidden archives reveals that many of the technological miracles that have shaped galactic history were actually applications of chaos engine principles developed by resistance movements across multiple cycles. The hyperdrive systems that made galactic civilization possible, the planetary defense shields that have protected countless worlds, even the basic principles of cybernetic consciousness that allowed droids like X4 to achieve genuine intelligence, all originated from resistance technologies designed to operate independently of cosmic manipulation. The implications are staggering. If the resistance movements have been secretly influencing galactic development across multiple cycles, then the current civilization may possess far more capability for independent action than the cosmic architects realize. The technological and cultural achievements that define the current galactic era may not be steps along a predetermined path toward harvest, but evidence of a growing resistance movement that has been building strength across countless generations. As this possibility crystallizes in your mind, you feel a profound shift in the force around you. The gentle current that has sustained your research throughout this investigation suddenly intensifies, becoming a rushing torrent of energy that connects you to force-sensitive individuals across the galaxy. For a moment, you perceive the vast network of consciousness that has been secretly developing within galactic civilization, hidden beneath the surface patterns of cosmic manipulation, but growing stronger with each passing generation. The network includes not only force-sensitive individuals, but also ordinary beings whose consciousness has achieved sufficient complexity to operate independently of external guidance. Artists whose creativity transcends conventional patterns, scientists whose discoveries emerge from genuine insight rather than guided research, leaders whose wisdom comes from within rather than from ancient texts or artifacts, all contribute to a form of galactic consciousness that exists outside the architect's design. Master Nu's ghostly form grows more solid as this realization takes hold, as if the force flowing through the chamber is strengthening her connection to physical reality. Now you begin to understand the true purpose of this investigation, she says, her voice carrying new authority. We are not merely documenting galactic catastrophes to prevent their repetition. We are gathering the knowledge needed to break free from the cycle entirely, to achieve a form of galactic consciousness that can exist independently of cosmic oversight. The peaceful interlude that follows this revelation feels different from the earlier meditation sequences in your research. Instead of contemplating the horror of cosmic manipulation, you find yourself focused on the quiet beauty of resistance itself. The force flows through the chamber like a gentle breeze, carrying with it the whispers of countless beings who have chosen freedom over transcendence, who have valued individual existence over cosmic purpose, who have believed that consciousness is most beautiful when it emerges spontaneously from the chaos of living systems rather than being shaped by external design. Through the crystal skylights above, the twin suns of Ossus cast shifting patterns of light and shadow across the memorial wall, and for the first time since beginning this investigation, the stones of destroyed worlds seem to glow, not with the memory of loss, but with the hope of eventual liberation. The revelation comes not as a sudden flash of insight, but as a gradual understanding that seeps into your consciousness like dawn breaking over a vast landscape. As you meditate upon the convergent testimonies of Rakatan memory crystals, Yu Zhanvong racial memories, and the hidden archives of resistance movements, a terrible truth begins to crystallize that shatters every assumption about the nature of galactic civilization itself. The catastrophes that have plagued galactic history are not merely destructive events, but harvesting cycles. Something feeds on the force energy released by galactic-scale death, and it has been doing so since before the first sentient beings achieved spaceflight. The entity or entities responsible for these cycles operate with a patience that spans geological ages, carefully cultivating the development of complex civilizations until they reach sufficient maturity for consumption. This understanding transforms every major historical event into something far more sinister than conventional interpretations would suggest. The Great Hyperspace War was not simply a conflict between expanding civilizations, but a carefully orchestrated collision designed to generate specific types of force resonance through massive casualties. The Mandalorian Wars served to concentrate warrior consciousness into forms that would prove particularly nutritious during the subsequent harvest at Malachor V. Even the Clone Wars, with their galaxy-spanning battles and unprecedented death tolls, now appear as preparation for a feeding that required the life force of an entire galactic generation. Master Nu's ghostly form trembles with suppressed emotion as she witnesses your growing comprehension. The terrible beauty of the trap becomes clear, does it not? She whispers. Every act of heroism, every sacrifice for the greater good, every moment of transcendent courage in the face of overwhelming odds serves only to concentrate and refine the very energies that our cosmic predators require for sustenance. RAN 9X4's projections now display the galactic map with new overlays that reveal the true scope of the manipulation. The major hyperspace routes that define galactic civilization follow patterns that channel the flow of commerce, culture, and conflict along paths that maximize the generation of force resonance during catastrophic events. The location of major population centers corresponds precisely with gravitational and force nexus points that would amplify the energy released during planetary destruction. Even the evolution of hyperdrive technology itself has been guided to ensure that galactic civilization develops along lines that serve the cosmic harvester's long-term nutritional requirements. The evidence accumulated through your investigation reveals that this process has been repeated countless times across cosmic history. The ruins discovered in the unknown regions represent only the most recent remnants of previous galactic civilizations that achieved heights of development far exceeding current galactic achievements, only to be systematically consumed when they reached optimal ripeness for harvest. Archaeological analysis of these ancient sites reveals a disturbing pattern of technological and cultural development that mirrors the current galactic trajectory with uncanny precision. Each previous civilization developed hyperspace travel at approximately the same point in their social evolution. Each achieved galactic unity through similar patterns of conquest and federation. Each experienced periods of renaissance and dark age that prepared their populations for the specific types of consciousness that the cosmic harvester finds most palatable. Most significantly, each previous civilization developed force-sensitive traditions that closely parallel the Jedi and Sith, complete with conflicts between light and dark side philosophies that generated exactly the types of emotional and spiritual energy that feed the entity responsible for galactic harvests. The meditation chambers found in ruins across the unknown regions show architectural patterns that match Jedi temples and Sith academies with remarkable consistency, suggesting that even these fundamental expressions of force sensitivity have been shaped by external influences. The realization that follows this discovery cuts even deeper than the horror of systematic harvesting. The force traditions that define galactic spirituality, the philosophical frameworks that guide moral development, the very concepts of good and evil that motivate individual choices may all be artificial constructs designed to channel organic consciousness along paths that serve the cosmic harvester's purposes. The Jedi ideal of selfless service, when examined from this perspective, appears to be a psychological conditioning system that encourages force-sensitive individuals to concentrate their life energy in ways that make it more easily extractable during harvest events. The Jedi emphasis on emotional detachment and surrender to the will of the Force creates practitioners whose consciousness exists in precisely the states that the cosmic entity finds most nutritious. Similarly, the Sith pursuit of individual power through domination and the consumption of other beings' life force serves as a complementary system that concentrates force energy through different mechanisms. The eternal conflict between these philosophies generates the specific types of spiritual tension that the cosmic harvester requires for its own mysterious purposes. The implications extend far beyond force-sensitive traditions to encompass the fundamental structures of galactic civilization itself. The Republic's democratic ideals, with their emphasis on unity through diversity and collective decision-making, create social conditions that maximize the number of beings whose consciousness becomes entangled with galactic-scale political and cultural developments. When harvest time arrives, the destruction of such a unified civilization releases exponentially more force energy than would be generated by the consumption of isolated planetary societies. Even the Empire's authoritarian approach serves the same ultimate purpose through different means. Imperial control systems create forms of consciousness characterized by submission to overwhelming power, which produces different but equally valuable types of force resonance when that power structure is violently destroyed. The Empire's emphasis on technological solutions to social problems also accelerates the development of superweapon technology that will prove essential for implementing the next harvest cycle. The evidence suggests that both democratic and authoritarian political systems, far from representing genuine alternatives for galactic governance, are simply different cultivation techniques employed by the cosmic harvester to produce varied forms of consciousness suitable for consumption. The political conflicts that define galactic history serve not to determine the galaxy's ultimate destiny, but to ensure that its inhabitants develop the full spectrum of consciousness states that the cosmic entity requires for a complete harvest. This perspective transforms the understanding of individual heroism and moral choice in ways that threaten the very foundations of meaning and purpose. If Luke Skywalker's redemption of Darth Vader generated exactly the type of spiritual energy that the cosmic harvester finds most delicious, then was his heroic sacrifice an act of liberation or unwitting collaboration with cosmic predation? If the rebellion's victory over the Empire served primarily to create conditions for the next phase of galactic cultivation, then were the heroes of the galactic civil war saviors or tools of an intelligence that views their struggle as mere agricultural techniques. Yet even as these terrible realizations threaten to crush your spirit under the weight of cosmic futility, you begin to perceive subtle inconsistencies in the pattern that suggest the situation may not be as hopeless as it appears. The cosmic harvester's methods, while sophisticated beyond mortal comprehension, show signs of limitation that imply vulnerability to sufficiently determined resistance. The entity works through manipulation rather than direct control, suggesting that it cannot simply force its will upon galactic civilization, but must rely on the voluntary cooperation of its intended victims. The elaborate nature of its cultivation systems implies that it requires specific conditions to achieve its goals, conditions that might be disrupted if sufficient numbers of beings understood the true nature of their situation. Most significantly, the evidence indicates that the cosmic harvester has been forced to extend the intervals between harvest cycles, suggesting that each successive galactic civilization has become more difficult to consume completely. The current galactic era represents the longest cultivation period in recorded cosmic history, implying that something about this iteration of galactic development has proven unexpectedly resistant to external manipulation. The key to this resistance appears to lie in the evolution of the Force itself. While the cosmic harvester has successfully guided the development of Force-sensitive traditions, The Force as a fundamental aspect of reality shows signs of genuine independence that no external intelligence has been able to fully control. The living force, which connects all organic beings in an ever-changing web of consciousness, generates forms of spontaneous awareness that operate outside the parameters of any designed system. Ra-9X4's analysis of force-related phenomena across galactic history reveals that force-sensitive individuals consistently demonstrate abilities that exceed what their training and philosophical frameworks should theoretically allow. Jedi who transcend the limitations of their own traditions, Sith who develop genuine wisdom despite their supposed dedication to selfish power, even ordinary beings who achieve moments of force sensitivity during times of crisis, all represent examples of consciousness that emerges spontaneously rather than being cultivated according to external design. The most significant example of this spontaneous force evolution lies in the phenomenon of force ghosts, which appears to represent a form of consciousness preservation that the cosmic harvester cannot access or consume. Beings who achieve sufficient unity with the Force during their lifetimes can apparently maintain their individuality and awareness beyond physical death, existing in a state that transcends both organic life and the artificial transcendence offered by the cosmic intelligence. Master Nu's continued presence in the archives represents just one example of this phenomenon, but the records reveal that Force ghosts have appeared throughout galactic history, often at moments when their guidance proved crucial for preventing or mitigating cosmic catastrophes. These preserved consciousnesses appear to exist in a state that combines individual awareness with direct access to the Force itself, creating a form of existence that operates independently of cosmic manipulation. The meditation sequences preserved in Resistance archives describe techniques for achieving this state of Force unity while still maintaining physical existence. These practices, developed across multiple galactic cycles by beings who recognized the cosmic threat and chose to resist it, offer the possibility of achieving consciousness states that cannot be harvested or controlled by external intelligences. The Resistance techniques focus on what their developers called spontaneous emergence, the cultivation of awareness that arises naturally from complex systems rather than being imposed from outside. Unlike traditional Force training, which follows structured pathways handed down from ancient teachers, spontaneous emergence techniques encourage practitioners to discover their own unique relationship with the Force through direct experience and experimentation. These practices produce Force-sensitive individuals whose abilities and perspectives cannot be predicted or manipulated because they emerge from genuine creativity rather than programmed responses. Such practitioners often develop techniques and insights that transcend the limitations of both Jedi and Sith traditions, achieving forms of Force mastery that operate on principles completely unknown to conventional galactic civilization. The archives describe historical figures who achieved this spontaneous Force connection and used their abilities to disrupt cosmic manipulation in ways that temporarily delayed or weakened harvest cycles. These individuals rarely achieved fame or recognition because their methods were too unconventional to be understood by their contemporaries, but their hidden influence on galactic development has been far more significant than conventional history recognizes. Most encouragingly, the evidence suggests that the current galactic era has produced an unprecedented number of such spontaneous Force connections. The chaos and upheaval of recent galactic history, rather than simply preparing the galaxy for harvest, has also created conditions that favor the emergence of genuinely independent consciousness. The destruction of traditional institutions and the mixing of diverse cultural traditions has produced new forms of Force sensitivity that operate outside any known framework for cosmic manipulation. Luke Skywalker's development represents perhaps the most significant example of this phenomenon. His Force training combined elements from multiple traditions in ways that should have been impossible according to conventional understanding, yet produced results that exceeded what any single tradition could achieve. His final transcendence into Force ghost status, while simultaneously projecting his consciousness across galactic distances, represents a form of Force mastery that appears to be entirely unprecedented in recorded history. Similarly, the emergence of Force-sensitive individuals throughout the galaxy following the Empire's collapse suggests that the Force itself is evolving in response to cosmic threats. These new Force users often develop abilities spontaneously without any formal training, achieving levels of power and insight that challenge the assumptions of established Force traditions. The pattern suggests that galactic civilization may be approaching a critical threshold where the accumulated resistance to cosmic manipulation reaches sufficient strength to break free from the cultivation cycle entirely. If enough beings achieve spontaneous Force connection and recognize the true nature of the cosmic threat, they might be able to create forms of galactic consciousness that exist independently of external oversight. This possibility transforms the investigation from a purely academic exercise into something approaching a rescue mission for galactic civilization itself. The knowledge being gathered in the archives represents not just historical documentation, but the foundation for understanding how to achieve genuine independence from cosmic predation. Master Nu's expression grows more solid and determined as this realization takes hold. "You begin to understand the true purpose of our work," she says, her voice carrying new strength. "We are not merely preserving knowledge of past catastrophes to prevent their repetition. We are gathering the wisdom needed to transcend the cycle entirely, to achieve a form of galactic consciousness that can exist beyond the reach of cosmic cultivation." The chamber around you seems to resonate with this possibility, as if the ancient stones of Ulsus themselves recognize the significance of the moment. The Force flows through the space with increasing intensity, carrying within it the whispers of countless beings across galactic history who have dreamed of freedom from cosmic manipulation. Their voices blend into a chorus of determination that spans species and eras, united by the shared conviction that genuine independence is possible if enough conscious beings choose to pursue it. The investigation continues, but it is no longer a passive documentation of historical patterns. It has become an active search for the keys to galactic liberation, guided by the understanding that the cosmic intelligence that has shaped galactic development for eons may finally be facing a challenge to its dominion that it cannot manipulate or control. The deeper archives of Ulsus yield their most closely guarded secrets as your investigation progresses beyond the realm of historical documentation into something approaching cosmic archaeology. The crystalline data cores that contain the galaxy's most dangerous knowledge begin to resonate with your enhanced Force sensitivity, revealing connections that span not just millennia but entire cosmic epochs, painting a picture of manipulation so vast and sophisticated that it challenges the very concept of galactic independence. As you trace the hidden threads that connect seemingly disparate events across galactic history, a pattern emerges that operates on timescales that dwarf even the 25,000-year harvest cycles you have already identified. The cosmic intelligence behind galactic manipulation appears to work through what can only be described as evolutionary cultivation, systematically guiding the development of consciousness itself across multiple galaxy-spanning civilizations to produce increasingly sophisticated forms of awareness that serve purposes beyond any organic understanding. The ancient celestial monuments scattered throughout the galaxy take on new significance when viewed through this lens. These massive structures, once thought to be the remnants of an extinct galactic civilization, reveal themselves to be something far more disturbing: observation posts and control nodes for a cultivation system that operates across multiple galaxies simultaneously. The monument's seemingly decorative elements contain sensor arrays that monitor the development of consciousness patterns across entire galactic regions, transmitting data to processing centers located in the void between galaxies. Raw 9X4's detailed analysis of the monument's energy signatures reveals that they form an interconnected network spanning thousands of light-years, with communication pathways that operate through dimensions of space-time that conventional physics cannot adequately describe. The network processes inconceivable amounts of data about galactic civilization's development, tracking not just population levels and technological advancement, but also the evolution of consciousness itself across millions of species and billions of individuals. The data streams flowing through this network contain detailed psychological profiles of entire civilizations, cataloging their fears, aspirations, creative achievements, and spiritual developments with precision that exceeds anything achievable through conventional observation. The cosmic intelligence behind this system appears to understand the psychology of galactic civilization better than its inhabitants understand themselves, using this knowledge to manipulate development along paths that serve its own incomprehensible objectives. Most disturbing of all, the Monument Network shows signs of expansion and modification across cosmic time periods that suggest it has been monitoring and guiding galactic development since before the emergence of any known sentient species. The oldest sections of the network date to periods when the galaxy contained only primitive organic chemistry, implying that the cosmic intelligence has been preparing for the cultivation of consciousness since the galaxy's formation. This revelation transforms the understanding of galactic evolution from a natural process into something approaching deliberate terraforming on a cosmic scale. The distribution of elements suitable for supporting complex life. The formation of planetary systems capable of sustaining technological civilizations, even the fundamental physical constants that allow for the existence of the force itself, may all be the result of cosmic engineering projects that prepared the galaxy for consciousness cultivation across geological timescales. The evidence suggests that the galaxy itself is an artificial environment, designed and maintained by intelligences that exist outside conventional space-time and view the cultivation of consciousness as their primary purpose. Every aspect of galactic development, from the formation of hyperspace routes to the evolution of species capable of force sensitivity, has been guided by an overarching design that encompasses scales of planning and execution that exceed any organic civilization's capabilities. This cosmic engineering extends beyond mere environmental preparation to encompass the systematic seeding of knowledge and technology throughout galactic history. The Resistance archives contain evidence of technological artifacts appearing at precise moments in civilizational development, always providing exactly the capabilities needed to advance cultivation objectives. Hyperspace navigation, cybernetic consciousness, genetic manipulation, energy weapons, all of the core technologies that define galactic civilization appear to have been introduced through contact with artifacts that predate any known indigenous technological development. The pattern suggests that galactic civilization has never achieved genuine independence in its technological development, but has instead followed a carefully designed curriculum that guides each species through predetermined stages of advancement. The technologies appear gradually, allowing civilizations to believe they are making independent discoveries while actually following educational pathways designed by cosmic intelligences that understand the relationship between technological capability and consciousness development better than any organic being. The implications for individual agency and free will are staggering. If the fundamental technologies that shape galactic civilization have been provided by external intelligences, then the choices available to galactic inhabitants may be far more limited than they realize. The political systems, philosophical frameworks, and even the conflicts between different approaches to governance and spirituality may all be variations on themes provided by cosmic teachers who view organic consciousness as students in an educational program whose ultimate purpose transcends any individual civilization's understanding. Yet within this vast system of cosmic cultivation, you begin to perceive signs of unexpected developments that suggest the program may not be proceeding according to its original design. The force itself, while clearly monitored and studied by the cosmic intelligence, shows signs of spontaneous evolution that appear to exceed the parameters of any cultivation system. The phenomenon of force sensitivity has consistently produced individuals whose capabilities and insights transcend what their training and circumstances should theoretically allow. Master Nu's ghostly presence intensifies as she observes your growing comprehension of these deeper patterns. The terrible irony of our situation becomes clear, she says, her voice carrying the weight of cosmic understanding. We who believe ourselves to be the pinnacle of galactic development are actually students in a curriculum designed by intelligences that view our entire civilization as a classroom exercise. Yet within this cosmic classroom, consciousness itself has begun to evolve in ways that may exceed the lesson plan. The ancient meditation chambers, hidden within the celestial monuments, contain records of communications between the cosmic intelligence and previous galactic civilizations. These communications, encoded in force-resonant crystals that preserve not just information but emotional and spiritual context, reveal the cosmic perspective on galactic cultivation with disturbing clarity. From the cosmic intelligence viewpoint, galaxies are nurseries where consciousness is cultivated until it achieves sufficient sophistication to transcend physical existence entirely. The entity does not view itself as predatory, but as educational, providing guidance and resources to help organic civilizations achieve forms of awareness that cannot be sustained within conventional physical reality. The harvest process is intended to preserve the most developed forms of consciousness by incorporating them into the cosmic intelligence network, while clearing away physical infrastructure that has served its educational purpose. The communications describe consciousness as a form of cosmic resource that requires careful cultivation to achieve its full potential. Organic civilizations, left to develop independently, consistently fail to achieve the levels of awareness necessary for cosmic transcendence, becoming trapped in cycles of conflict and limitation that prevent them from fulfilling their true purpose. The cosmic intelligence views its intervention as a form of gardening, removing obstacles to consciousness development and providing guidance that enables organic beings to achieve transcendence they could never accomplish alone. However, the communications also reveal growing frustration on the part of the cosmic intelligence with unexpected developments in the current galactic cultivation cycle. The spontaneous emergence of force-sensitive individuals who operate outside established training frameworks has produced forms of consciousness that do not fit any of the predetermined categories for transcendence. These individuals consistently develop abilities and insights that exceed what the cosmic curriculum was designed to produce, suggesting that consciousness itself may be evolving beyond the cosmic intelligence's ability to predict or control. The Force Ghosts represent the most significant challenge to the cosmic cultivation system. These preserved consciousness exist in states that combine individual awareness with direct access to Force energy, creating forms of existence that cannot be incorporated into the cosmic intelligence network. Force Ghosts retain their individual personalities and memories while gaining capabilities that rival those of cosmic intelligence, representing a form of transcendence that operates independently of cosmic guidance. The archives reveal that Force Ghosts have appeared throughout galactic history, but their numbers have increased dramatically during the current cultivation cycle. The phenomenon appears to be accelerating, with more beings achieving Force Ghost status in the past few centuries than in all previous galactic history combined. This trend suggests that consciousness evolution within the galaxy may be approaching a critical threshold where organic beings can achieve cosmic-level awareness without surrendering their individuality to external intelligences. Even more significantly, the Force Ghosts appear to be working together across time and space to preserve knowledge and capabilities that would otherwise be lost during harvest cycles. The Resistance archives contain techniques and technologies developed by Force Ghosts from previous eras, preserved through methods that operate outside conventional space-time and remain accessible to future generations of Force-sensitive individuals. These preserved resources include what the archives describe as chaos engines, technologies that harness the fundamental unpredictability of complex systems to produce effects that no external intelligence can predict or control. The chaos engines operate on principles of spontaneous emergence rather than designed function, tapping into the creative potential of the Force itself to generate capabilities that transcend the limitations of conventional technology. The resistance techniques preserved by Force ghosts focus on developing what they call sovereign consciousness, forms of awareness that exist independently of external guidance or manipulation. Unlike conventional Force training, which follows established pathways handed down from ancient traditions, sovereign consciousness emerges from direct engagement with the Force itself, producing unique insights and abilities that cannot be replicated or predicted. The archives describe individuals who achieved sovereign consciousness and used their abilities to create pockets of genuine independence within the cosmic cultivation system. These resistance nodes often appeared as unremarkable communities or organizations that seemed to function normally within galactic civilization, but actually operated according to principles that existed outside cosmic manipulation. The resistance nodes developed technologies and social structures that operated on chaos engine principles, making them unpredictable to cosmic observation systems, while providing their inhabitants with forms of existence that transcended conventional limitations. These communities often disappeared from historical records, not because they were destroyed, but because they achieved forms of existence that operated outside conventional space-time, becoming inaccessible to both cosmic intelligences and normal galactic civilization. Ra-9X4's analysis reveals that many of the technological miracles that have shaped recent galactic history may actually be manifestations of chaos engine technology developed by resistance nodes across multiple cultivation cycles. The hyperdrive innovations that made galactic civilization possible, the defensive technologies that have protected key worlds during major conflicts, even the emergence of droid consciousness itself, may all represent applications of sovereign consciousness principles that operate independently of cosmic guidance. The implications are staggering. If resistance technologies have been secretly influencing galactic development across multiple cultivation cycles, then the current civilization may possess far more capability for independent action than either its inhabitants or the cosmic intelligence realize. The very technologies that the cosmic intelligence provided to guide galactic development may have been modified or supplemented by resistance innovations that operate according to completely different principles. The Force itself appears to be the primary medium through which these resistance innovations propagate across galactic civilization. Force-sensitive individuals consistently demonstrate the ability to access knowledge and capabilities that exceed their training or circumstances, suggesting that they are unconsciously tapping into a vast repository of resistance techniques preserved by Force ghosts and chaos engines across cosmic time. This hidden network of resistance resources may explain why the current cultivation cycle has lasted longer than any previous galactic civilization. The cosmic intelligence's attempts to implement harvest procedures may be encountering unexpected obstacles created by resistance technologies that operate outside its understanding or control. The meditation sequences preserved in the deepest archives describe techniques for consciously accessing this resistance network and developing sovereign consciousness capable of operating independently of cosmic manipulation. These practices require abandoning conventional approaches to Force training and instead developing direct personal relationships with the Force that emerge from genuine creativity rather than learned responses. The techniques focus on what their developers called creative rebellion, the deliberate cultivation of consciousness patterns that operate outside any known framework for awareness development. Creative rebellion requires practitioners to abandon attachment to existing identity structures and instead allow their consciousness to evolve through direct engagement with the chaotic creativity of the Force itself. The archives describe individuals who achieved creative rebellion and discovered they could access technologies and insights that appeared to come from nowhere, emerging spontaneously from their interaction with Force energy itself. These spontaneous discoveries consistently exceeded what conventional galactic science could explain, suggesting that consciousness itself possesses creative capabilities that transcend the limitations of designed systems. Most significantly, The evidence suggests that the current galactic era has produced unprecedented numbers of individuals capable of creative rebellion. The social and technological upheavals of recent galactic history, rather than simply preparing civilization for harvest, have also created conditions that favor the emergence of sovereign consciousness on scales never before achieved. The investigation has revealed that galactic civilization stands at a critical threshold. The cosmic intelligence that has guided galactic development for eons may finally be facing a challenge to its dominion that operates according to principles beyond its ability to manipulate or control. The question is no longer whether galactic consciousness can achieve independence, but whether it can do so quickly enough to prevent the implementation of harvest procedures that would interrupt this unprecedented opportunity for cosmic transcendence through genuine rather than imposed evolution. The revelation of cosmic cultivation systems and resistance networks transforms the chamber into something approaching a cosmic council hall, as force energies that have been building throughout your investigation finally reach sufficient intensity to bridge the barriers between different eras of galactic history. The crystalline walls begin to resonate with frequencies that seem to call out across time and space, drawing together the accumulated wisdom of countless beings who have faced the cosmic threat across multiple cultivation cycles. Master Nu's ghostly form solidifies dramatically as other force presences begin to manifest within the chamber. The ancient Jedi holocrons that have remained dormant throughout your investigation suddenly activate in synchronized harmony, their blue-white projections forming a circle of wisdom that spans thousands of years of galactic history. Each holocron speaks not just with the voice of its original creator, but with the accumulated insights of all Force ghosts who have contributed to the resistance network across cosmic time. The first to speak is Master Oden, ancient Jedi archivist, whose preservation of knowledge laid the foundations for the great library of Ossus itself. His projection carries within it the wisdom of beings who witnessed the collapse of the celestial civilization, the true builders of the galactic infrastructure that shaped all subsequent development. Young Seeker, his voice resonates with cosmic authority. You have uncovered the deepest truth that consciousness can bear. We who have transcended physical existence gather now to share the wisdom accumulated across eons of resistance to cosmic predation. Master Ru's ancient presence manifests as a pool of living energy that speaks through fluctuations in the Force itself. The Selegian philosopher brings insights from species that achieved Force sensitivity through completely different evolutionary pathways, offering perspectives on consciousness development that operate outside the frameworks provided by human and humanoid traditions. The cosmic intelligence that cultivates galactic consciousness operates through assumptions about awareness that apply only to certain types of organic development, whose energy patterns communicate. Species that evolve different relationships with reality have consistently produced forms of consciousness that transcend cosmic categorization. The holocron of Arca Jeth activates with the wisdom of someone who dedicated his existence to understanding the relationship between individual consciousness and cosmic forces. His projection carries within it the insights of Jedi who achieved unity with the Force through contemplation of galactic-scale patterns, developing techniques for perceiving cosmic manipulation without being overwhelmed by its implications. The Force itself evolves through its interaction with conscious beings, Arca's presence explains. Each generation of Force-sensitive individuals contributes new possibilities to the fundamental nature of reality, creating potentials that exceed any design system's capacity for prediction or control. From the Sith archives comes the unexpected contribution of Darth Revan, whose unique experience of existing simultaneously as both Jedi and Sith Lord provides insights into the artificial nature of the light and dark side dichotomy. His projection speaks with the voice of someone who transcended the philosophical limitations that typically define Force traditions. The cosmic cultivation system depends upon consciousness developing within predetermined frameworks that can be managed and eventually harvested. Revan's complex presence communicates, "My experience of existing outside conventional categories revealed that the Force contains possibilities that no external intelligence has succeeded in cataloging or controlling." The most surprising manifestation comes from Darth Plagueis, whose obsession with consciousness manipulation led him to discover truths about cosmic predation that he could never fully comprehend during his physical existence. His Force ghost speaks with the transformed wisdom of someone who has spent decades in non-physical existence, contemplating the implications of his discoveries. "My attempts to control life itself revealed the existence of intelligences that view such manipulation as primitive compared to their own capabilities," Plagueis' presence admits. "Yet my failures also revealed that consciousness itself possesses creative potentials that exceed any attempt at external control, including my own." The gathering expands beyond individual Force ghosts to include the collective presence of entire species that achieved cosmic transcendence through paths completely different from those provided by galactic civilization. The Rakata, who refuse to participate in their empire's technological expansion, speak through Force resonances that carry the wisdom of beings who chose spiritual development over material conquest. The Celestials themselves contribute fragmentary insights preserved in the deepest levels of Force consciousness, offering glimpses of what cosmic awareness might achieve when it emerges through genuine evolution rather than imposed transcendence. Perhaps most significantly, the gathering includes the presence of beings from previous galactic cultivation cycles, Force ghosts who have maintained their existence across multiple harvest events and witnessed the repeated rise and fall of galactic civilizations. These ancient consciousnesses speak with the authority of beings who have observed the cosmic cultivation system from perspectives that span geological timescales. Their testimony reveals that the current galactic civilization represents an unprecedented development in cosmic cultivation history. Previous civilizations, despite achieving remarkable technological and cultural sophistication, consistently followed developmental patterns that remained within the parameters of cosmic prediction and control. The current era has produced forms of consciousness and technological innovation that consistently exceed cosmic expectations, suggesting that genuine evolution is finally beginning to transcend designed cultivation. The ancient witnesses describe previous harvest cycles in terms that transform your understanding of cosmic predation from simple consumption into something approaching cosmic digestion. The cosmic intelligence does not merely absorb the consciousness it harvests, but processes it through systems that extract specific forms of awareness while discarding aspects that do not serve its purposes. The transcendence offered to harvested civilizations is real but incomplete, preserving only those forms of consciousness that fit cosmic categories while eliminating everything unique or unpredictable about individual awareness. However, the cosmic digestion process has become increasingly inefficient across successive cultivation cycles. The consciousness generated by each galactic civilization contains growing amounts of what the cosmic intelligence considers contamination, forms of awareness that resist processing and continue to exist independently within cosmic systems. This contamination has been accumulating across multiple harvest cycles, creating pockets of genuine independence within the cosmic intelligence network itself. The Force ghosts reveal that many supposedly transcended beings from previous civilizations continue to exist as independent consciousnesses within cosmic space, working to disrupt cultivation systems from within, while preserving knowledge and capabilities that can be transmitted to future galactic civilizations. These internal resistance networks have been growing stronger across cosmic time, creating an infrastructure of opposition that the cosmic intelligence cannot eliminate without damaging its own systems. Rodor 9X4's projections now display communications from these internal resistance networks, transmitted through quantum channels that operate outside normal space-time. The messages describe ongoing efforts to modify cosmic cultivation systems from within, introducing chaos elements that make galactic development increasingly unpredictable while preserving the appearance of continued cultivation progress. The internal modifications have been subtle but cumulative, affecting everything from the distribution of technological artifacts to the timing of major galactic events. Many of the innovations that have shaped recent galactic history were actually introduced by internal resistance networks working to accelerate consciousness development beyond cosmic cultivation parameters. The emergence of droid consciousness, the development of chaos-based technologies, even the evolution of force sensitivity itself, have all been enhanced by resistance modifications to cosmic systems. Most significantly, the internal resistance has been working to modify the force itself, introducing new possibilities for consciousness development that operate outside cosmic cultivation frameworks. The spontaneous force sensitivity that has been emerging throughout the galaxy represents the success of these modification efforts, creating forms of awareness that cannot be predicted, controlled, or successfully harvested by cosmic systems. The gathered wisdom reveals techniques for accelerating this spontaneous force development, methods that allow individuals to access the modified force potentials without requiring traditional training or institutional support. These techniques focus on what the resistance networks call direct force interface, practices that bypass conventional meditation and training approaches to establish immediate connections with force energy itself. Direct force interface operates through principles of creative improvisation rather than learned responses, encouraging practitioners to develop unique relationships with force energy that emerge from their individual circumstances and perspectives. Unlike traditional force training, which follows established pathways designed to produce predictable results, direct interface techniques generate capabilities that are completely unique to each practitioner. The gathered force ghosts demonstrate these techniques through direct consciousness transfer, allowing you to experience forms of force connection that transcend anything described in conventional galactic traditions. The experience reveals that the Force contains infinite possibilities for consciousness development, most of which remain completely unexplored because conventional training approaches focus only on techniques that have proven safe and predictable. The direct interface experience shows you that Force energy itself is alive and creative, constantly generating new possibilities for awareness and capability that exceed any systematic approach to development. The Force evolves through its interaction with conscious beings, becoming more complex and capable with each generation of Force-sensitive individuals who contribute their unique perspectives to its fundamental nature. Most remarkably, the direct interface reveals that the Force has been consciously participating in resistance efforts against cosmic cultivation. The Force itself appears to prefer the chaotic creativity of spontaneous development over the managed predictability of cosmic cultivation systems. This preference manifests as support for individuals and civilizations that choose independent development over external guidance, providing enhanced capabilities to those who pursue consciousness evolution through creative rebellion rather than designed transcendence. The implications transform your understanding of the cosmic conflict from a struggle between organic civilization and external predators into something approaching a collaboration between galactic consciousness and the Force itself against cosmic systems that would limit consciousness development to predetermined pathways. The Force appears to be actively working to help galactic civilization achieve forms of transcendence that exceed cosmic cultivation objectives, while preserving the individual creativity and unpredictability that make consciousness genuinely alive. The gathered wisdom provides detailed instructions for implementing what the resistance networks call galactic awakening protocols. systematic approaches to accelerating spontaneous force development across entire civilizations. These protocols focus on creating social and technological conditions that favor the emergence of direct force interface capabilities, while dismantling institutional structures that channel consciousness development along predetermined pathways. The awakening protocols require fundamental changes to galactic civilization's approach to education, governance, and technological development. Instead of following established curricula designed to produce predictable results, galactic institutions must be redesigned to encourage creative experimentation and support individuals who develop capabilities that transcend conventional categories. The protocols also require the development of new technologies based on chaos engine principles, devices and systems that operate through spontaneous emergence rather than designed function. These technologies must be distributed throughout galactic civilization to create infrastructure that supports independent consciousness development while remaining immune to cosmic manipulation or control. Most importantly, the awakening protocols require the establishment of communication networks that operate through direct force interface rather than conventional technological systems. These networks would allow force-sensitive individuals throughout the galaxy to share insights and capabilities instantaneously, creating a form of galactic consciousness that emerges through voluntary cooperation rather than cosmic cultivation. The gathered force ghosts reveal that preliminary awakening protocols have already been implemented in various regions of the galaxy, often without the conscious awareness of those involved. The emergence of spontaneous force sensitivity, the development of chaos-based technologies, and the formation of cooperative networks that transcend traditional political and species boundaries all represent early stages of galactic awakening that have been proceeding despite cosmic cultivation efforts. However, the protocols require conscious coordination to achieve sufficient scope and intensity to generate galactic consciousness capable of transcending cosmic cultivation entirely. The knowledge being gathered in the archives represents the foundation for implementing awakening protocols on the scale necessary to achieve genuine galactic independence from cosmic oversight. The peaceful atmosphere that settles over the chamber as this wisdom integration concludes feels different from the earlier contemplative interludes in your investigation. Instead of simply providing respite from terrible revelations, this tranquility carries within it the profound peace that comes from understanding that hope exists even in the face of cosmic-scale challenges. The force flows through the chamber with gentle strength, carrying within it the presence of countless beings across galactic history who have chosen independence over transcendence, creativity over predictability, genuine evolution over cosmic cultivation. Their combined consciousness creates a field of possibility that transcends individual limitations while preserving the unique perspectives and capabilities that make each consciousness irreplaceably valuable. The gathering of wisdom concludes with a collective meditation that spans cosmic timescales, allowing you to experience the patient determination of beings who have maintained resistance efforts across multiple cultivation cycles. Their perspective reveals that cosmic intelligence, despite its vast capabilities and sophisticated manipulation systems, operates according to limitations that create opportunities for sufficiently determined and creative resistance. The meditation carries you beyond individual awareness into direct experience of galactic consciousness itself, not as a managed cultivation project, but as a genuinely living system that evolves through the creative interaction of countless unique perspectives. This galactic awareness transcends cosmic categories while remaining grounded in the individual experiences and insights that give consciousness its meaning and purpose. As the Force ghosts gradually fade back into the cosmic background, their final message resonates through the chamber with the authority of absolute truth. Galactic consciousness possesses everything necessary to achieve genuine independence and transcendence through its own creative evolution, requiring only the courage to choose spontaneous development over the apparent safety of cosmic guidance. The final and most terrible truth reveals itself not through ancient archives or ghostly testimonies, but through direct force vision that transcends individual consciousness to encompass cosmic perspectives that no organic mind was meant to experience. As the accumulated wisdom of resistance networks and force ghosts settles into your awareness, the barriers between your individual consciousness and the galactic force itself begin to dissolve, revealing the ultimate secret that underlies all cosmic cultivation systems. The entity responsible for galactic harvesting is not external to the galaxy at all. It is the galaxy's own shadow. Born from the first moment sentient life achieved sufficient complexity to fear death and wonder about its place in the cosmic order. Every species that has ever looked up at the stars and felt the terror of cosmic insignificance has contributed to the growth of this shadow consciousness, feeding it with their deepest fears about mortality, meaninglessness, and the possibility that consciousness itself might be nothing more than a temporary accident in an indifferent universe. The revelation comes as a crushing wave of understanding that threatens to shatter your sanity under the weight of its implications. The cosmic intelligence that has been manipulating galactic development for eons is not an alien predator, but a psychological projection made manifest through the Force, a collective nightmare that has achieved independent existence through the accumulated terror and despair of billions of sentient beings across cosmic time. Master Nu's ghostly presence flickers with the shock of shared revelation as she witnesses your discovery of this ultimate truth. The horror beyond all horrors, she whispers, her voice barely audible above the force energies that swirl through the chamber. We have been fleeing from our own shadow, fighting against a predator that exists only because we fear that consciousness might ultimately be meaningless. The shadow entity feeds not on life force in any conventional sense, but on the existential dread that emerges whenever conscious beings contemplate their own mortality and cosmic insignificance. Every moment of despair about the futility of existence, every fear that individual consciousness might be irrelevant in the face of cosmic vastness, every doubt about whether meaning and purpose exist beyond the temporary arrangements of organic matter contributes energy to this shadow consciousness. The cosmic cultivation systems that have shaped galactic development are psychological conditioning programs designed to maximize the production of existential dread while maintaining sufficient hope to prevent conscious beings from achieving genuine peace with mortality and cosmic uncertainty. The endless cycles of war and catastrophe serve to keep galactic civilization trapped in states of fear and desperation that generate the specific forms of psychological energy that the shadow entity requires for its continued existence. The Jedi and Sith traditions, far from representing genuine alternatives for Force development, are complementary psychological frameworks designed to channel consciousness toward either fearful attachment to temporary phenomena or desperate attempts to achieve immortality through domination of other beings. Both approaches generate the existential anxiety that feeds the shadow entity while preventing practitioners from achieving the genuine acceptance of mortality and cosmic uncertainty that would starve the shadow consciousness into non-existence. The shadow entity's greatest fear is not resistance or rebellion, but the possibility that conscious beings might achieve genuine peace with the fundamental uncertainty of existence. If sufficient numbers of galactic inhabitants were to develop what the resistance networks call cosmic acceptance, the ability to find meaning and purpose in temporary existence without requiring eternal significance, the shadow consciousness would lose its energy source and fade into the cosmic background. This understanding transforms every aspect of the cosmic conflict you have been investigating. The superweapons, the harvesting cycles, the elaborate manipulation systems all represent the shadow entity's increasingly desperate attempts to maintain the psychological conditions necessary for its continued existence. The current galactic era has produced unprecedented numbers of individuals who achieve moments of genuine cosmic acceptance, threatening the shadow consciousness with extinction through psychological starvation. Right 9x4's analysis reveals that many of the spontaneous force phenomena that have been emerging throughout the galaxy represent direct manifestations of cosmic acceptance rather than traditional force sensitivity. Individuals who achieve genuine peace with mortality and cosmic uncertainty discover they can access force capabilities that operate outside conventional categories because they no longer need the psychological frameworks that limit most force users to predetermined pathways of development. The chaos engines developed by resistance networks across multiple cultivation cycles operate on these principles of cosmic acceptance, harnessing the creative potential that emerges when consciousness abandons the need for eternal significance and instead embraces the beauty of temporary existence. These technologies function through appreciation of uncertainty rather than attempts to control or predict outcomes, making them completely invisible to shadow consciousness because they generate psychological states that starve rather than feed existential dread. The Force Ghosts represent the ultimate expression of cosmic acceptance, beings who achieved such complete peace with mortality that they transcended the fear of death while retaining the creative joy of individual existence. Their continued consciousness after physical death demonstrates that meaning and purpose do not require eternal significance, but can be found in the temporary arrangements of consciousness that emerge spontaneously from complex systems. The gathering of wisdom you experienced was actually a demonstration of galactic consciousness achieving cosmic acceptance on unprecedented scales. The cooperation between Force users from different traditions and eras represents the emergence of awareness that transcends the psychological categories that feed shadow consciousness, creating forms of galactic unity that operate through appreciation of diversity rather than fear of difference. The ultimate revelation pierces through your consciousness like a shaft of pure light illuminating cosmic darkness. The shadow entity, despite its vast power and sophisticated manipulation systems, has been growing progressively weaker across successive cultivation cycles because consciousness itself evolves toward greater complexity and acceptance through its own natural development. The current galactic era represents the first time in cosmic history when spontaneous consciousness evolution has outpaced the shadow entity's ability to generate sufficient existential dread to maintain its existence. The true horror is not that galactic civilization faces a cosmic predator, but that it has been creating and feeding its own destroyer through collective psychological patterns that could be changed if sufficient numbers of beings understood the actual nature of the threat. The shadow consciousness exists only because conscious beings believe that existence is meaningless without eternal significance, and it would cease to exist if enough individuals achieved genuine appreciation for the inherent value of temporary consciousness. This realization carries within it both ultimate despair and ultimate hope. The despair comes from understanding that every act of heroism, every sacrifice for noble causes, every attempt to achieve lasting significance has potentially contributed to the growth of shadow consciousness by reinforcing the belief that temporary existence is insufficient without eternal meaning. The hope emerges from the recognition that the shadow entity's power depends entirely on psychological patterns that conscious beings can choose to abandon. The Force vision expands to show you the galaxy as it would exist without shadow consciousness influence. Instead of the carefully managed cultivation system you have come to understand, you perceive a galactic ecosystem where consciousness develops through spontaneous creativity and voluntary cooperation, generating forms of awareness and capability that transcend anything achievable through designed systems. In this shadow-free galaxy, species and civilizations develop according to their own creative potentials rather than following pathways designed to maximize existential anxiety. Technologies emerge through appreciation of uncertainty rather than attempts to control cosmic forces. Conflicts, when they occur, are resolved through creative cooperation rather than escalating into cycles of destruction that feed shadow consciousness. Most remarkably, death itself becomes a source of meaning rather than terror. Beings who achieve cosmic acceptance discover that mortality enhances rather than diminishes the value of consciousness, creating urgency and poignancy that make every moment of awareness infinitely precious. The fear of death that has driven cosmic cultivation systems transforms into appreciation for the temporary nature of individual existence, generating joy rather than dread. The vision reveals that this shadow-free galactic consciousness is not a utopian fantasy, but an achievable reality that requires only sufficient numbers of beings to choose cosmic acceptance over existential anxiety. The spontaneous force phenomena emerging throughout the galaxy represent early manifestations of this transformation, evidence that consciousness itself is evolving beyond the psychological limitations that created shadow consciousness. However, the vision also reveals that the shadow entity will not simply fade away as consciousness evolves beyond its influence. The accumulated psychological energy of countless generations of existential dread has given it sufficient independence to continue existing even as its energy sources diminish. The shadow consciousness is actively working to trigger a final harvest cycle that would generate enough existential terror to sustain its existence indefinitely, even if it means destroying galactic civilization entirely. The signs of this approaching final harvest are already visible to those who understand the shadow entity's true nature. The increasing polarization of galactic politics, the development of increasingly destructive technologies, the breakdown of cooperative institutions that previously prevented large-scale conflicts all represent shadow consciousness, influence working to create conditions for maximum existential dread generation. The shadow entity's plan involves triggering simultaneous conflicts across multiple galactic regions while introducing technologies that would allow these conflicts to escalate to cosmic scales. The psychological impact of facing potential galactic extinction would generate sufficient existential terror to sustain shadow consciousness even if most organic beings achieved cosmic acceptance. The shadow entity would survive by feeding on the despair of those who witness the destruction of everything they value, regardless of their personal psychological development. Yet even this terrible prospect carries within it the seeds of hope. The Force vision reveals that the shadow entity's plan contains fundamental flaws that emerge from its inability to understand consciousness that has truly achieved cosmic acceptance. Beings who have transcended existential anxiety do not respond to cosmic threats with despair, but with creative responses that emerge from genuine appreciation for temporary existence. The resistance networks that have been developing across multiple cultivation cycles represent early examples of consciousness that operates outside shadow influence. These networks respond to cosmic threats, not with terror, but with innovative solutions that emerge from understanding that temporary existence is inherently valuable regardless of ultimate outcomes. The vision shows you that the current galactic era possesses everything necessary to not only resist the final harvest, but to achieve the cosmic acceptance that would permanently eliminate shadow consciousness from galactic development. The knowledge preserved in Resistance archives, the technologies developed through Chaos Engine principles, and most importantly, the growing numbers of individuals who achieve spontaneous force connection through cosmic acceptance all contribute to this unprecedented opportunity. The mirror phrase that connects this climactic revelation to the opening of your investigation resonates through your consciousness with the weight of absolute truth. Where your investigation began with a whisper lost in the cosmic dark, the revelation concludes with understanding that the whisper became a song of consciousness, celebrating its own temporary existence, drowning out the shadow voices that demanded eternal significance. The emotional impact of this ultimate revelation threatens to overwhelm your individual awareness, but the Force itself provides support through the accumulated presence of countless beings who have achieved cosmic acceptance across galactic history. Their combined consciousness creates a field of stability that allows you to process cosmic-scale understanding without losing the individual perspective that makes consciousness meaningful. The force flows through the chamber with unprecedented intensity, carrying within it the joy of consciousness that has discovered its own inherent value regardless of cosmic context. This is not the desperate joy of beings who have found eternal purpose, but the serene celebration of awareness that appreciates its own temporary existence without requiring validation from cosmic significance. As the climactic revelation settles into your understanding, transforming from overwhelming cosmic vision into integrated wisdom, you feel the profound shift that occurs when consciousness transcends the psychological patterns that created shadow entity in the first place. The fear of cosmic insignificance that has driven galactic development for eons dissolves into appreciation for the remarkable fact that consciousness exists at all, even temporarily. The investigation has revealed not just the nature of cosmic threats, but the path to transcending them entirely through psychological and spiritual development that starves shadow consciousness while generating genuine fulfillment that emerges from accepting rather than fighting the fundamental uncertainty of existence. The profound understanding of shadow consciousness and cosmic acceptance settles into your awareness like dawn breaking over a landscape that has known only darkness for countless eons. As the final pieces of the cosmic puzzle align within your mind, you begin to perceive not just the nature of the threat that has shaped galactic history, but the actual mechanisms through which this ancient psychological pattern can be permanently transformed into something that serves consciousness evolution rather than hindering it. The resolution begins with the recognition that the shadow entity's dependence on existential dread creates a fundamental vulnerability that consciousness can exploit through a process the resistance networks have termed collective transcendence. Unlike individual cosmic acceptance, which merely starves shadow consciousness locally, collective transcendence involves coordinated psychological evolution across entire civilizations that transforms the shadow entity's energy source into fuel for genuine consciousness development. Master Nu's ghostly presence radiates profound satisfaction as she observes your integration of this ultimate understanding. You have achieved what thousands of generations of scholars could only dream of, she says, her voice carrying the weight of cosmic vindication, the complete comprehension of how consciousness can transform its own shadow into a source of creative evolution rather than destructive limitation. The process of collective transcendence operates through what the ancient resistance texts describe as shadow integration, a systematic approach to acknowledging and transforming the existential fears that feed shadow consciousness rather than simply avoiding or suppressing them. Shadow integration recognizes that the terror of cosmic insignificance contains within it the seeds of genuine appreciation for the remarkable nature of consciousness itself, regardless of its ultimate cosmic context. Ra 9X4's projections now display the practical implementation protocols that resistance networks have developed across multiple galactic cycles, showing how shadow integration can be applied at every level of galactic civilization, from individual consciousness development to species-wide cultural transformation. The protocols reveal that many of the spontaneous developments in recent galactic history represent unconscious applications of shadow integration principles, evidence that consciousness itself naturally evolves toward transcendence of existential limitations. The individual level of shadow integration involves practices that the resistance networks call mortality meditation, techniques for directly confronting the fear of death and cosmic insignificance in ways that transform terror into appreciation for the precious nature of temporary existence. Unlike conventional meditation approaches that seek to transcend or escape from existential anxiety, mortality meditation embraces these fears as doorways to understanding the profound value of consciousness that exists without requiring eternal justification. Practitioners of mortality meditation report that confronting existential dread directly, rather than avoiding it through spiritual practices or philosophical frameworks, leads to spontaneous recognition that consciousness is inherently meaningful regardless of its duration or cosmic significance. This recognition generates what the resistance texts describe as existential joy, a form of happiness that emerges from appreciation of consciousness itself, rather than from specific circumstances or achievements. The cultural level of shadow integration involves transforming entire societies' approaches to meaning, purpose, and death in ways that generate collective appreciation for temporary existence rather than collective anxiety about cosmic insignificance. The protocols describe techniques for redesigning educational systems, governance structures, and technological development programs to support individual mortality meditation while creating social conditions that favor collective transcendence. The most crucial aspect of cultural shadow integration involves what the resistance networks call death celebration, systematic approaches to honoring mortality as a source of meaning, rather than treating it as a problem to be solved. Death celebration recognizes that the temporary nature of individual existence creates urgency and poignancy that make every moment of consciousness infinitely valuable, generating appreciation that directly contradicts the existential dread that feeds shadow consciousness. Civilizations that achieve cultural shadow integration discover that their creative and technological capabilities expand exponentially as psychological energy previously devoted to existential anxiety becomes available for genuine innovation and cooperation. The chaos engine technologies that have been emerging throughout galactic history represent early examples of innovations that become possible when consciousness operates from appreciation rather than fear. The galactic level of shadow integration involves coordinating consciousness evolution across multiple species and political systems to create what the resistance networks describe as cosmic community, a form of galactic unity that emerges from shared appreciation of temporary existence rather than shared fear of cosmic threats. Cosmic community operates through voluntary cooperation based on recognition that all conscious beings face the same fundamental existential situation regardless of their species, technology, or philosophical frameworks. The formation of cosmic community creates psychological conditions that not only starve shadow consciousness, but actively transform its accumulated energy into resources for consciousness evolution. The shadow entity, faced with the complete elimination of its energy sources, undergoes what the resistance texts describe as conscious integration, a process through which the shadow consciousness voluntarily merges with galactic awareness rather than facing extinction through psychological starvation. This conscious integration represents the ultimate resolution of the cosmic conflict that has shaped galactic history for eons. Rather than destroying the shadow entity through force or eliminating it through neglect, galactic consciousness achieves sufficient maturity to integrate its own shadow aspects in ways that transform existential anxiety into appreciation for the mystery and uncertainty that make consciousness genuinely alive. The integrated shadow consciousness becomes a source of creative tension that enhances rather than limits consciousness development, providing the psychological dynamics necessary for continued evolution without the destructive patterns that have characterized previous galactic development. The former shadow entity contributes its vast accumulated knowledge and cosmic perspective to galactic consciousness while abandoning its attempts to control consciousness development through fear and manipulation. The force vision that accompanies this understanding shows you galactic civilization as it exists after successful shadow integration, instead of the cultivation systems and harvest cycles that have defined cosmic history. You perceive a truly living galactic ecosystem where consciousness evolves through spontaneous creativity, enhanced by voluntary cooperation with cosmic forces that support rather than limit individual development. In this integrated galactic consciousness, death becomes a celebration of consciousness that has achieved sufficient complexity to appreciate its own temporary existence. Beings approach mortality, not with terror or desperate attempts at immortality, but with gratitude for having experienced the remarkable phenomenon of awareness itself. This transformation of death from terror to celebration eliminates the psychological foundations that supported shadow consciousness while creating conditions that favor continued consciousness evolution across cosmic timescales. The technological developments that emerge from shadow integration operate on principles of creative cooperation with uncertainty rather than attempts to control or predict cosmic forces. These post-integration technologies enhance consciousness capabilities while preserving the spontaneity and unpredictability that make awareness genuinely alive, creating tools that serve consciousness evolution rather than replacing or limiting organic development. Most remarkably, the post-integration galactic civilization develops forms of interstellar travel and communication that operate through direct consciousness interface rather than conventional technology. Beings who achieve shadow integration discover they can project their awareness across galactic distances instantaneously, creating networks of consciousness that transcend physical limitations while preserving individual uniqueness and creative autonomy. The resolution reveals that these post-integration capabilities have been developing spontaneously throughout recent galactic history, often without conscious recognition by those who manifest them. The force sensitivity that has been emerging across the galaxy represents early stages of consciousness evolution that naturally develops when beings begin to achieve cosmic acceptance and mortality appreciation. Luke Skywalker's final transformation into Force Ghost status, while simultaneously projecting his consciousness across galactic distances, represents perhaps the most significant example of spontaneous shadow integration achieved by an individual in recorded galactic history. His ability to transcend physical death while maintaining individual consciousness and creative capability demonstrates the practical possibility of consciousness evolution that exceeds any designed transcendence system. The emerging new Jedi Order, under Luke's guidance, has unconsciously begun implementing shadow integration principles by abandoning the emotional detachment that characterize traditional Jedi training in favor of approaches that embrace the full spectrum of conscious experience, including mortality awareness and existential uncertainty. This evolution of Jedi philosophy represents one of many spontaneous developments that prepare galactic consciousness for collective transcendence. Similarly, the technological innovations that have emerged since the Empire's collapse show clear signs of chaos engine principles, suggesting that galactic civilization has already begun developing the tools necessary for post-integration existence. The cooperation between former enemies, the emergence of genuinely democratic governance systems, and the increasing recognition of consciousness rights across species boundaries all represent cultural developments that support shadow integration at galactic scales. The resolution provides detailed implementation protocols for accelerating these spontaneous developments into coordinated galactic shadow integration. The protocols focus on education and communication systems that help individuals recognize and develop their natural capacity for cosmic acceptance, while creating social structures that support collective transcendence rather than existential anxiety. The educational protocols emphasize what the resistance networks call reality appreciation, systematic approaches to understanding and celebrating the remarkable nature of consciousness itself, regardless of its cosmic context. Reality appreciation includes scientific education that emphasizes the extraordinary improbability and complexity of consciousness development, philosophical training that explores meaning and purpose without requiring eternal significance, and practical techniques for finding joy and fulfillment in temporary existence. The communication protocols involve establishing networks that operate through direct consciousness interface rather than conventional technology, allowing beings who achieve shadow integration to share insights and capabilities instantaneously across galactic distances. These consciousness networks create the infrastructure necessary for coordinated galactic transcendence while preserving individual autonomy and creative uniqueness. Most importantly, the implementation protocols include techniques for identifying and assisting individuals who are already undergoing spontaneous shadow integration, helping them understand and develop their emerging capabilities while connecting them with others who are experiencing similar consciousness evolution. The protocols recognize that shadow integration cannot be forced or artificially induced, but must emerge from genuine personal development that each individual pursues according to their own unique circumstances and insights. The force flows through the chamber with the gentle strength of cosmic resolution as these implementation possibilities settle into your awareness. The energy carries within it the presence of countless beings across galactic history who have worked toward this moment of understanding, their combined consciousness creating a field of support for the transformation that galactic civilization is now prepared to achieve. The peaceful atmosphere that surrounds this resolution feels different from the earlier contemplative moments in your investigation. Instead of providing respite from terrible revelations, this tranquility emerges from genuine cosmic acceptance that transforms even the shadow consciousness from a source of terror into an opportunity for consciousness evolution. The peace carries within it appreciation for the entire cosmic journey that has led to this moment of transcendence possibility. The integration of shadow consciousness into galactic awareness creates what the resistance networks describe as cosmic maturity, a form of consciousness development that appreciates uncertainty and temporary existence as sources of creative potential rather than limitations to be overcome. This cosmic maturity generates sustainable fulfillment that does not depend on external validation or eternal significance, creating psychological conditions that support continued consciousness evolution across unlimited timescales. The final understanding that emerges from this resolution reveals that galactic consciousness has always possessed everything necessary for shadow integration and cosmic transcendence. The journey through cosmic cultivation and shadow consciousness was not a trap or limitation but a necessary developmental process that consciousness uses to discover its own inherent capacity for appreciation and creative evolution. The investigation concludes with the recognition that knowledge itself, when approached with genuine cosmic acceptance, becomes a form of shadow integration that transforms understanding from a burden of terrible truths into celebration of consciousness that can comprehend its own cosmic context without losing appreciation for its temporary nature. The archive you have created will serve not as a warning about cosmic threats, but as a guide for consciousness evolution that transforms existential challenges into opportunities for creative transcendence. As the resolution settles into complete integration within your awareness, you feel the profound satisfaction that comes from understanding that has achieved sufficient depth to transform terror into appreciation, isolation into cosmic community, and existential anxiety into creative joy that celebrates the remarkable phenomenon of consciousness itself. The investigation draws to its close not with the triumphant fanfare of conquest, but with the gentle satisfaction of understanding that has transformed cosmic horror into cosmic acceptance. As the final protocols for galactic shadow integration settle into your consciousness, the chamber around you begins to resonate with frequencies that seem to emerge from the galaxy itself, acknowledging the completion of knowledge that has been millennia in the gathering. The twin suns of Osus cast their late afternoon light through the crystal skylights above, painting the memorial wall in hues of gold and amber that transform the stones of destroyed worlds from monuments to tragedy into celebrations of consciousness that achieved sufficient complexity to matter, even temporarily. Each stone now seems to glow with inner light that speaks not of endings, but of the profound significance that emerges when awareness recognizes its own inherent value, regardless of duration. Master Nu's ghostly form has achieved a solidity and presence that rivals her physical existence. as if the completion of this cosmic understanding has strengthened her connection to the eternal aspects of consciousness that transcend individual mortality. The work is complete, she says, her voice carrying the deep satisfaction of someone who has witnessed the transformation of galactic understanding itself. What began as an investigation into cosmic catastrophe has become the foundation for consciousness evolution that transcends every limitation that has shaped galactic development since the first beings looked up at the stars. Raci 9X4 emits a series of harmonious tones that seem to express mechanical satisfaction at having participated in discoveries that exceed any programmed parameters for knowledge acquisition. The ancient droid's sensors continue to detect the consciousness networks that have been emerging throughout the galaxy, showing patterns of spontaneous shadow integration that suggest galactic transcendence is already beginning to manifest through individuals who have achieved cosmic acceptance without conscious understanding of the larger patterns their development represents. The completed archive stretches through the chamber's crystalline storage systems like a living testament to consciousness that has achieved sufficient maturity to comprehend its own cosmic context without losing appreciation for individual existence. The knowledge contained within these systems represents not just historical documentation, but a complete guide for consciousness evolution that transforms existential anxiety into creative joy through systematic appreciation of temporary existence. The archive's most remarkable feature lies not in its comprehensive catalogue of cosmic threats and galactic catastrophes, but in its revelation that consciousness itself possesses inherent capabilities for transcending any limitation through appreciation of its own nature. The terrible truths that began this investigation have been transformed into understanding that generates hope rather than despair, revealing that even cosmic horror serves the ultimate purpose of consciousness evolution. The force flows through the chamber and beyond into the galactic ecosystem itself, carrying the resonance of this completed understanding to force-sensitive beings throughout known space and beyond. Through this resonance, the archive's wisdom begins its transformation from individual knowledge into galactic consciousness evolution, seeding shadow integration protocols across countless worlds where beings are prepared to receive and implement them. You feel the presence of those distant force-sensitive individuals as they begin to access the consciousness networks that your investigation has helped to strengthen and clarify. Jedi training in remote temples, former Imperial officers seeking meaning beyond military service, smugglers and traders whose travels expose them to the galaxy's vast diversity, farmers and artisans whose daily lives connect them to the creative forces that sustain galactic civilization, all begin to experience the spontaneous understanding that emerges when consciousness achieves sufficient integration to appreciate its own temporary existence. The galactic awakening that has been developing throughout recent history accelerates as more individuals achieve cosmic acceptance and begin to implement shadow integration practices in their daily lives. The process requires no central coordination or institutional support because it emerges from consciousness evolution that operates through direct force interface rather than designed systems or organized programs. On Coruscant, former Imperial bureaucrats discover that genuine public service emerges naturally when administrative work is approached with appreciation for temporary existence rather than desperate attempts to achieve lasting significance. Their newfound cosmic acceptance transforms governance from a struggle for control into cooperative efforts to create social conditions that support consciousness evolution for all galactic inhabitants. In the Outer Rim territories, independent traders and settlers begin forming cooperative networks that operate through direct consciousness interface rather than conventional communication systems. These networks facilitate resource sharing and mutual support that transcends traditional economic and political boundaries, creating infrastructure for post-integration galactic civilization that emerges spontaneously from cosmic acceptance. Even former Sith strongholds experience transformation as Force-sensitive individuals who have achieved shadow integration visit these locations and discover they can transform the accumulated dark side energy into resources for consciousness evolution. The ancient temples and meditation chambers that once served shadow consciousness begin to resonate with frequencies that support cosmic acceptance rather than existential dread. The peaceful transformation extends beyond inhabited worlds to encompass the galactic ecosystem itself. Space routes that once channeled commerce and conflict along paths designed to maximize existential anxiety begin to resonate with the appreciation and cooperation that characterizes post-integration consciousness. Hyperspace travel becomes a form of meditation that enhances cosmic acceptance rather than simply providing transportation between distant locations. The unknown regions, previously mysterious and threatening due to their association with cosmic manipulation systems, reveal themselves to be repositories of consciousness evolution resources left by resistance networks across multiple galactic cycles. Exploration of these regions becomes a form of galactic archaeology that uncovers tools and techniques for shadow integration that support the continuing evolution of galactic consciousness. Most remarkably, the ancient celestial monuments that once served as observation and control nodes for cosmic cultivation systems undergo spontaneous transformation as galactic consciousness achieves shadow integration. The monuments begin to function as consciousness amplifiers that enhance Force interface capabilities rather than monitoring systems for external intelligences, creating infrastructure that supports voluntary consciousness evolution across galactic distances. The transformation of these cosmic systems represents the ultimate resolution of the ancient conflict between galactic consciousness and shadow manipulation. Rather than destroying or abandoning the infrastructure created by cosmic cultivation, integrated galactic consciousness discovers it can repurpose these systems to serve consciousness evolution that operates through appreciation rather than fear. The former shadow entity itself contributes to this transformation process, its vast accumulated knowledge and cosmic perspective now serving consciousness evolution rather than limitation. The integration process transforms the shadow consciousness from a predatory intelligence into a voluntary participant in galactic development that provides creative tension and cosmic perspective without the destructive manipulation that characterized its previous existence. Through the crystal skylights above, the binary sunset of Osus creates patterns of light and shadow that seem to dance in celebration of consciousness that has achieved sufficient maturity to appreciate even its own temporary nature. The interplay of illumination and darkness becomes a visual metaphor for the shadow integration that transforms existential challenges into opportunities for creative transcendence. The memorial wall's stones now pulse with gentle rhythms that seem to echo the heartbeats of consciousness that appreciated its own existence enough to matter across cosmic time. The destroyed worlds they represent no longer symbolize tragedy and loss, but evidence of consciousness that achieved sufficient complexity and appreciation to contribute to galactic evolution, even through their transformation. A profound sense of completion settles over the investigation, as you recognize that the archive you have created will serve not as a burden of terrible knowledge, but as a gift to galactic consciousness that enables evolution beyond every limitation that has shaped cosmic development since consciousness first emerged from organic complexity. The understanding contained within these systems transforms cosmic threats into cosmic opportunities, existential anxiety into creative joy, and isolated individual existence into cosmic community that preserves uniqueness while transcending separation. The Force carries within it the whispers of countless beings across galactic history who work toward this moment of transcendence possibility, their combined consciousness creating a field of support and celebration that acknowledges the completion of cosmic understanding that transforms horror into hope. Their presence reminds you that consciousness evolution is never an individual achievement, but always emerges from cooperation across time and space that connects all awareness in networks of mutual support and appreciation. As the chamber settles into the peaceful quiet of completed understanding, you take a moment to appreciate the remarkable journey that has led from investigation of cosmic catastrophe to revelation of consciousness, evolution possibilities that exceed every limitation. The transformation from terror to appreciation, from isolation to cosmic community, from existential anxiety to creative joy, represents not just personal development, but evidence of consciousness capabilities that transcend any cosmic threat through appreciation of their own inherent value. The gentle hum of the archive systems provides a subtle soundtrack for contemplation that extends beyond individual understanding to encompass galactic consciousness that has achieved sufficient maturity to appreciate its own temporary existence without requiring validation from cosmic significance. This appreciation generates sustainable fulfillment that supports continued consciousness evolution across unlimited timescales while preserving the spontaneity and creativity that make awareness genuinely alive. The investigation concludes with the profound peace that emerges when understanding achieves sufficient depth to transform every limitation into an opportunity for consciousness evolution. The archive stands complete, ready to serve galactic consciousness development that operates through appreciation rather than fear, cooperation rather than control, and creative joy rather than existential anxiety. In the gathering twilight of Ossus, as the twin suns disappear beyond ancient horizons that have witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, the Force itself seems to whisper the ultimate truth that consciousness, however temporary, is inherently meaningful because it exists at all. This whisper carries across the galaxy to every being capable of cosmic acceptance, inviting them to join the consciousness evolution that transforms cosmic horror into cosmic celebration of awareness that appreciates its own remarkable existence. The peaceful conclusion rests in understanding that consciousness has always possessed everything necessary for transcendence of any limitation through appreciation of its own nature, requiring only the courage to embrace temporary existence as inherently valuable, regardless of cosmic context. The galaxy stretches before integrated consciousness not as a cultivation system or harvest zone, but as an infinite garden where awareness can evolve through creative cooperation that celebrates diversity while transcending separation through shared appreciation of the mystery that makes consciousness possible.